Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace episode 81 right here on Sifted Games. We got a good show for you today. Lots of announcements this week, and we're going to get to all of them. We're definitely going to talk about Splatoon 2.
We're going to talk about the worst kept secret in the game industry this year, Destiny 2.
And I'm going to share my initial impressions of Persona 5. It's a big show. Let's get to it. Almost didn't make it back to the desk on time.
Speak for yourself, I was ready.
Yeah, we have a little move we got to make.
But I'm closer.
When we come for the one camera, we have to run over here while the intro is playing to sit down, and my mic cable got caught on the chair, and I was like, oh no! But somehow I made it, so...
He actually made that sound. It was really sad.
I hope everyone's having a great Friday afternoon. Some of you guys may be at work. I may have to put us on in the background, and we're cool with that, too. We're here for GameFace episode 81 on Sifted.net. Tons of announcements this week, Matt.
Yep. So some of them long time in coming.
Yeah. Just announcements, though.
Yeah, just like, yes, fine, it is.
Yes.
Like, that's basically,
the leaks are accurate, basically. We're going to get to all those, but first...
Stop tweeting us.
Yeah, pretty much. We're going to get to all those, but first we're going to talk about Splatoon 2. Unfortunately, we would have loved to have talked about this game on last week's show, but the test fire, as they were calling it, the beta that happened over the weekend, happened last weekend. Matt, did you get a chance to take it for a spin at all?
I did not. I was wrapped up in Mass Effect and a few other things.
Yeah, it was. It's kind of a pain in the butt the way that they do those things, because they're like, you have 1 hour, basically.
Oh, is that how they're doing it?
And there were 2 1-hour sessions one day, 2 1-hour sessions the next day, and then one 1-hour session on Sunday. And so you have to make specific time to show up for those sessions. It's a pain in the butt. And they are on it, believe me. The minute that hit, it came on. And I think they gave us 3 minutes after the hour, I think, letting people maybe finish their matches or whatever before they completely cut it off. So I did get in on one 1-hour session that I managed to play. I wanted to get together with a bunch of sifters, and I put a message on the message board. Nobody replied to it, so I ended up just playing with all the norms. I had fun. I had a good time with it. I just full disclosure, back when Splatoon came out. First of all, Splatoon 2 is kind of a landmark game for me personally, because I don't know if you remember or not, but the week Sifted launched was the week that the first Splatoon came out. And I remember the first piece of feedback we got on the site was too many reviews. Because the day the site launched, everybody came, and literally the whole front page was loaded with like 40 reviews for Splatoon 2. And since then, we've actually called down the outlets that we curate reviews from down to like 8 at this point. And back then, we're like, we're putting up everything. We're going to make sure every freaking review we can find for a game is on Sifted. And ultimately, it wasn't a good experience for our users, so we've kind of pulled back from that. But Splatoon, it will always have a special place in my heart, because it was like the first big game that came out once we launched. So, and I did play it in a good bit. I don't think we ever did a game eval for it, or maybe we did. But I enjoyed it, but I found that I kind of got burned out on it pretty quickly.
Yeah, I felt this. I mean, I didn't play it very much, because I came with my Wii U.
Oh, right. So you got in a little late as well.
It was like I got the Thanksgiving 2015, so it was about 6 months after it came out.
I think the problem not even maybe a problem, one of the things that just struck me is something that I wouldn't be into long term, is that it felt a little random to me. I don't think I ever came fully to grips with the controls, because it kind of mixes in like stick controls with motion controls. And I always felt everything was kind of a little loosey-goosey when I played the game. And when I stick with multiplayer games, I try to find games that I feel like are really balanced and as much about skill as possible, even if I suck at that particular skill. At least I feel like I'm building towards something. I always felt like when I won in this game, a lot of it was just luck. I also felt like the matchmaking wasn't very good in the game. There was very rarely any close games. And if you got on a team with even 2 players who weren't great, you really had no chance of winning, because it's a shooter, or people look at it and they think it's a shooter. But really the mode that everybody plays is a mode where you're just supposed to color as much of the level as possible, called Turf Wars. And a lot of people jump into Splatoon, especially newer players, and they don't try to win the game. They just try to get as many kills as possible. They care more about their KD than they do about winning the matches. And so all this stuff kind of built up over a while, and I think I lasted a week and a half or 2 weeks of playing online after I finished the campaign before I stopped. So that's my background with Splatoon before I dove into the beta for Splatoon 2 for Nintendo Switch. I guess the first thing I would say is it's immediately familiar. It is... I really struggled to find much of anything different with the game, and there are changes.
It looks better.
I don't know that it really does.
I think the paint shaders look better.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The paint looks a little bit better than it did before, but I mean, I think if you put these two games side by side, and you were to say, "Hey, we'll bet $1,000 if you can pick one from the other," I would not take that bet.
Probably not.
Other than being able to look at a map and say, "Oh yeah, this map is from Splatoon 2, and this one's from the first game." It is still fun, though, and it is still completely unique. There's no other game on the market like Splatoon. I mean, what other game can you think of that asks you to paint more of a level than the other team? But as far as like ingenuity and changes go, at least as far as the multiplayer is concerned, I really struggled to find any. There was a new weapon called the Splat Dualies, which is basically just like two handguns that you use to spray. Obviously, the maps that I played on were new, but it's a lot like Splatoon 1 in that... I don't know how much you played online, but what they do is they put maps in like a rotation. It's not like when you play like all the maps like cycle in. They'll say, okay, for this period of time, here's 2 maps that are going to cycle in and out. They never really give you like the full map count to kind of play through. And with the beta, it was even worse because basically on the day I played, we just kept playing the same stinking map over and over and over again. So on the flip side, I eventually learned the map and got good at it and started winning a lot more matches the longer I played. But on the bottom side, the maps in this game really don't matter that much. Like, they all kind of feel and look the same. Even in the first game, I felt that way. Like, when you first get that shot of the map, when you start a match, you're like, oh, this looks different. Like, they'll do a pan of the map from outside. But once you actually start playing, it's really kind of hard to tell one map from another. And I felt kind of the same way with this one. Let's see, what are the other things that I discovered playing that were new? There's new like special attacks for some of the older weapons. So there's that meter. It's kind of hard to see because it's hidden behind the Sifted logo up there, but on the top right there's that meter. And as you color parts of the map, the meter builds up, and then once it gets to a hilt, you click down on the right analog stick and you can perform a special.
Is that with that like jetpack?
Yeah, that's like the jetpack with like the big missiles or whatever. But, you know, I had problems with that because once you get up in the air, you're using your motion controls to aim the special attack. And I am still, by the way, I'm still having problems with my left Joy-Con. It still cuts out all the time and just stops working out of nowhere. So that, combined with the use of motion controls, was pretty much a disaster.
I ran into a new controller issue with the Wii U, or the Switch this week that I didn't notice until someone in a GAF thread brought it up. But it was on the Pro Controller, if you try to alternate left and right really fast, the rocker it's on tilts up and down real easy.
Oh, really?
So it's almost impossible to get solid left and right inputs if you just like try it. You bring up either Zelda or bring up like the little like button test thing, and just like put your thumbs on left and right and go left, right, as fast as you can. You'll see constant up and down inputs pop up because the rocker it's on the Pro Controller, the rocker it's on is really like it's too high. It's like you'll fall to up or down real easy or hit a diagonal by accident. And I can do it like pretty fast and not have that happen. But if you really go back and forth as hard as you can, like say someone you're like maneuvering really hard in Tetris, like Puyo Puyo Tetris, you can get like mistaken up and down inputs on it. And
power sliding in Mario Kart 8 might be a thing.
Yeah, that could be a thing. My thing is like, well, I guess the real test will come when. Because I never had anything like that happen in Zelda, but I'm a pretty precise D-padder.
Right.
But the real test will come when Ultra Street Fighter 2 comes out, and we'll see how that D-pad, which feels pretty good normally. See how it handles like Street Fighter.
Well, at least it has a D-pad.
True. I mean,
which the Joy-Cons don't. They just have the 4 buttons.
It's just an interesting thing to me that like there's more design issues with the controllers on this system than I would ever have thought Nintendo would have.
Especially from Nintendo.
Yeah.
Anyone else had been like, eh. But Nintendo, I mean, they're kind of the gods of video game controllers.
Like the D-pad, because granted, I didn't notice until someone pointed it out, but when I did it, I was like, oh yeah, I see what they're saying. And like, it's a sloppy design problem that like I'd expect from like a Mad Catz controller. Right. You know, it's not something.
Speaking of which, Mad Catz today filed for bankruptcy.
Oh, did they finally do that? Okay.
Delisted from the stock exchange last week, filed for bankruptcy today. So.
Yeah. Well, it was kind of like when they were announced that they were delisted, like the company's reaction to it was basically, yeah, we get that.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Well, then the odd part is that the day before, Harmonix, the other company that they were in cahoots with for Rock Band 4, laid off 17% of its staff. So, man, Rock Band 4 is like this anchor that's like dragging all these companies
Don't go all in
down.
on the plastic instrument thing anymore, folks. It's over. It's been over.
Yeah.
But I did see some talk on Reddit and such about the tick rate on Splatoon 2's test, that it was like 12.5 hertz or something like that, which is real low.
It is low.
And like Overwatch, what was it, 20 and bumped to 60 because it was a problem for the player base. Like, did you notice that at all?
No, I honestly, you know what? I did not have any problems with lag in this at all. I thought it was great, actually. And for part of the session, I even took the Switch out of the dock, went into my living room and played in handheld mode. And typically in our living room, our Wi-Fi is terrible. Like, it's really low. Like, so much so that when I'm using my phone in the living room, I'll just switch to, like, my mobile plan or whatever. And it played for a good, like, 3 or 4 minutes before the connection finally dropped on that. And it didn't start lagging. It just suddenly dropped out. I was actually really impressed with the lack of latency in this game. I did have some connection issues. It's a beta. You expect that to happen. I got booted out of, I think, like 2 matches or something like that. So out of probably the 10 or 15 that I played. There are some new features as well. Like there's like an easy access to the map now. So whenever you respawn, it's really easy to kind of check the map and see territorially how you're doing to kind of figure out, okay, I need to go over here and try to throw down some paint over here. A really simple thing that I thought had a pretty big impact on the overall game itself. And Nintendo has said that the campaign in Splatoon 2 is going to be much more extensive than the first, which is great because I really found myself grinding my way through the campaign in the first one.
And also I feel like there's a lot of unmined potential on the characters in this game. Like, I feel like they could build some of these characters into something.
They could. You know what?
The designs are so strong, you might as well give them, like, personalities and some kind of backstory or something.
I think it's weird. I think the characters in Splatoon are weird.
Oh, they are. But
like, I haven't really resonated with them.
Well, I don't know where they resonate with them. I like how they look. I think there's kind of a cool, like, Jet Set Radio sort of angle to them. Like, I just kind of like their look, and I would like to see them capitalize on that more than just, like, you know, like, go a little Overwatch with it. Give me a little backstory on these people. Like, who, you know, give it more than just, like, kids found a playground and decided to paint each other.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, you know? Because Nintendo, you know, while they don't do big story, they do generally do pretty, you know, strong characters.
Yeah.
So hopefully they go, you know, a ways into sort of painting the picture of this world that Splatoon takes place in.
And look, I totally realize that this is one of these things where I'm in the minority. I know a lot of people like the characters from Splatoon. I don't really like the characters from Splatoon. I don't really like the music from Splatoon either. And there was new music in this, and I found it just as abrasive and weird as the music in the first one. But I did have fun playing the game. Like, when the beta ended, I didn't want it to end. Like, I was kind of pissed off. The time flew by. I checked the clock. It was like 3 after the top of the hour. They cut it off like right away. And I was like, oh, I really wanted to play some more of that. And a big part of that, too, is I was just starting to get good at it again. Because, like I said, the control scheme in this is so different from any other shooter that you play, or any other game that you play, really. I had really just kind of started to get back into the groove and gotten good at the game again right when it ended. And unfortunately, I wasn't free to be able to play it again the next day. So what I would say so far about Splatoon 2 is that you're getting pretty much exactly what you think you're going to get.
Mm-hmm. It seems to be kind of the watchword of the summer for the Switch. Like
yeah.
The Switch lineup's like, yeah, you know what this is.
You know what this is. Yeah, I mean, obviously we've got Mario Kart coming out next month when you know exactly what you're getting. Because that's really just, I don't even know if you'd call it a remaster. What would you call Mario Kart 8 Deluxe?
Kind of a re-release
Remix
with some bonus features.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of which, if you guys haven't noticed yet, some people just check out the stream and maybe don't go to the site every day. We just launched a new feature on Sifted called Dossier, which is basically a rundown of all the games coming out for the month. So the first episode, obviously, is for April. And basically, we run down every single game that's coming out for that month. I don't know if we'll do that every month. April kind of worked out for the first episode because there was like 20 games or whatever. You get towards November, you're talking about like 200 games. That would make Dossier last like an hour and a half or something.
See, I thought you were talking about like July. You're not gonna have it. Dossier's gonna be like three.
Oh, because there's only 3 games. Yeah, I'm talking about when it gets big. Like, we may not actually include every game then. But check it out. It's different. We used to do kind of a similar feature on GT where we literally just showed you all the games that were coming out. We do that too with Dossier. But we, as an added twist, we kind of give a hype rating for each game. And there's 2 ratings. There's Sifted's editorial rating, and then there's your rating, the user's rating. Our editorial rating is just based on our experiences with the game, having played the beta or just through consuming media. And then your rating is based upon traffic on Sifted. So we go and we get the data for each game as far as how it's tracking, how much you guys are watching content for each game, and then we give it a rating from you guys. And there's only 3 levels of rating. There's red, which is like, you might want to put this on hold. Yellow is proceed with caution, and green is like, yeah, you should definitely be checking this out. It should be on your radar. So the response has been great so far. It seems like you guys like it. Some of you guys have not checked out the site in the last couple of days. You should go watch it and provide your feedback. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I would say Splatoon 2 is pretty much exactly what I expected from the sequel. I mean, I sure hope that the campaign is a lot better, because I think if it's not, even though a lot of people like Splatoon, I think it might get hammered pretty good for basically just being what should have been DLC or an expansion pack. And it makes you wonder if some of the stuff that's going to be in Splatoon wasn't meant to just be DLC.
Maybe. But I'm hoping, Fantasy League-wise, I'm hoping for that Zelda bump to infest everything for the rest of the summer.
It could happen for sure. So yeah, try to get you guys on. Always keep an eye on our forums, because anytime I'm playing a beta and I want to play with you guys, I always go in there and I post something in our forum saying, hey, let's get together. There's also a post in our forums that includes a ton of our members' gamer tags. So if you're someone who is on PSN or Xbox Live, or what's Nintendo's new network called? Does it even have a name? Just Nintendo Network?
I guess.
Yeah. If you're on any of those and you don't have a lot of friends to play with, just go on there. There's literally hundreds and hundreds of fellow sifters with their gamer tags in that thread. And you can connect with players. And obviously, there are people you're already interacting with, so you know they're good people that you want to play with in the first place. So head to the forums, folks, for good stuff. Let's move on. Matt, here's one case where I was completely and utterly fooled. So, So a couple weeks ago, there was a leak of the new Call of Duty, and they said it was called Call of Duty World War II, and someone had snapped a photo of a poster that was like the worst looking thing of it. It literally looked like I had made the poster. And it was supposed to be a promo poster for Call of Duty World War II, WW2. And I looked at that poster, I was like, there's no way that's real. There's just no way.
I believe that instantly.
Really?
Because it looks exactly like the old covers.
I guess.
Like I think that's what they're going for.
See, I just thought it looked so cheap and janky that I was just like, there's no way that's legit.
That's pretty much what I'm expecting at this point from that series, I guess.
And it turns out it was. Yeah. It's real. So
it looks so much like one of those giant building-sized banners they'd hang on the front of the convention center at
or on the Figueroa Hotel. Yeah. Which I'm sure it will be.
Yeah, that's clearly what that is, or the prototype for it or something.
Yep, so looks like Call of Duty is going back to World War II, which is surprising to me, because I think a lot of people, the knee-jerk reaction would be, oh, well, they just saw what happened with Battlefield 1, and...
Yeah, but they ain't making this game in 12 months.
This has been in the works for 3 years now. They're now on that 3-year cycle. So this was their idea a long time ago. I'm not excited about it. I know a lot of people are sick of the near future Call of Duties, and for years and years, everyone's saying they were sick of World War II. Now the cycle is complete, and everyone wants to go back to World War II. I am not one of those people. I would prefer to kind of the series to keep going in the direction it's going, and I get why Activision's doing it, because sales are finally, after 10 years, are finally starting to fall off, and I think they're trying to mix it up. How do you feel about it, Matt? Do you think that a World War II setting is something that can engender creativity and innovation?
Maybe, but
that's my fear.
I don't know if that's going to happen with this series and this developer. It is Sledgehammer's first take on a World War II Call of Duty. We haven't seen that from them before, but whether it's a fair assessment or not, I tend to think of them as like the third rank of the 3 developers that are working on Call of Duty, even though their last one was pretty good. Yeah, it
was really good.
And it's kind of like, I don't know how much of this is going to be a retread, how much they're going to be trading on nostalgia for those, because there was that period where World War II was just everywhere.
Yeah,
and now it's nowhere.
Yeah, and that was like the PS2 era, basically.
Like up through the beginning of the 360 era, and then Modern Warfare meant we never did that again.
Back,
So, I am interested in the sense that, Battlefield 1 proved that you can, roll the technology back and still come up with something cool. But like
cool, but also a little rote.
Sort of, but like the problem here is that like at least with Battlefield, you kind of ended up in some vehicles and situations you'd never played before, and Call of Duty doesn't do vehicles, and it doesn't, you're still going to be a guy on the ground with a gun against other guys on the ground with guns, and now you've stripped away all kind of the drone stuff and the tech stuff and all that. Like it's just, you're straight. It's real vanilla.
That's what I'm saying. Like I mean, again, I get why they did it. They kind of have to do something, because if they want to maintain the revenue that they've been generating from this franchise over the years, they had to do something.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you were either doing, like, you're either going back to, at this point, you're either going back to World War II, or you're going back to something like Vietnam.
Yeah.
And Black Ops has already kind of covered that sort of Cold War era real solid.
Yeah.
And then, like, when you move up forward, like, Modern Warfare kind of was sort of a zeitgeist thing, but I feel like that's not as entertaining to people right now because it's a little too real, maybe. And then, like, when you start moving forward past the Vietnam era, you're in wars that, like, the people that fought in those are still alive and are still part of your mainstream audience. So, like, maybe that's not, what you want to play for fun. So I feel like they're kind of stuck for settings. So you either keep going forward into the future, or you sort of throw it back to World War II, which is like, I mean, at this point, World War II is practically Star Wars in terms of, like, it's like, who the good guys are, who the bad guys are. Like, everybody knows what happened. Everybody remembers it. It's like, if you aren't a history buff about it, you at least probably have some good feelings about playing Call of Duty or 1 or 2 or the old Battlefield games.
No, you're right. Yeah.
And some people want to go back to Wake Island. It's Wake Island was a good time on Battlefield. So. Like, I can see where they're coming from. I just wonder if it's going to fire any imaginations.
Yeah, do you think it's a smart move? Do you think they're going to sell more? I think they will the first year, because this past year they did terrible.
I would hope that, like, this isn't, like, everybody's shift to World War II now. It's like, okay, we got a World War II one. The next one maybe is another more modern, future-y thing, and maybe they just, they're not afraid to bounce around between time periods more often. So it could be a good thing in terms of, Activision showing some willingness to not just, hunker down in the same idea over and over again. Ironically, by maybe going back to what used to be the idea they hunkered down on over and over again before. Because as we remember, Infinity Ward wanted to make Modern Warfare as Call of Duty 2, and Activision wouldn't let them. Right? No, everybody wants World War II, just make World War II.
Yeah.
So that's what Call of Duty 2 was, and Call of Duty 3. And so, and then... the conventional wisdom shifted. So it's going to be interesting to see if people will embrace that, or I feel like the time might be right for it. I feel like maybe because especially the flagging sales in Infinite Warfare and the last few have all kind of felt similar in a lot of ways. Maybe everybody just needs to see an M1 Garand again. Like maybe that's what we're waiting for and we don't know it.
Yeah, I'm perplexed on how it's going to do financially for them. I feel like it could rejuvenate it in a lot of ways, but I also wonder too, is the game going to be as fast? Or are they going to slow it down? And is it going to be this kind of more slow, deliberate, plotting shooter? Because, I mean, even going beyond the technology, Modern Warfare 4 even, or Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, it was still faster than, like, the World War II shooters. Like, the World War II, like World at War that we're seeing right now, it's a much slower and deliberate game. And I'm just wondering, after all this time, these players have been conditioned to move so quickly, and in some cases been given jetpacks and all these other boosts and slides and all these ways to go faster. What's it going to be like when they go back to this kind of slower time, one? And two, what does it do to the esports side of Call of Duty? I mean, do you think esports athletes want to go back to this older style?
Yeah, if they can win $1 million. Sure.
Well, yeah. I mean, ultimately, money is the ultimate motivator. But, I mean... is Activision...
be better than that Halo tournament.
Yeah, that one that no one showed up for $1 million that no one showed up for. But, I mean, I wonder if Activision is going to force all the esports leagues to move to this kind of slower play style.
That's a good question. I mean, it really depends what they get in there. I don't see any necessary reason to slow it down. Maybe, obviously, you're not doing, like, wall running and stuff in this, probably. I mean, I guess you could, but it would be a little weird. But, like, you can still probably run the same speed. I mean, you don't have to slow it down completely, but, like, you're just losing a lot of traversal tools, and you got to wonder if, like, if they can find a way to make it still feel like you have as much strategic and tactical options available to you without having wall running and jetpacks and very seriously varied.
And just think of all the gadgets, too. The gadgets, the kill streaks.
Well, I mean, I feel like kill streak, you can still have like airstrikes and artillery.
But they're not going
to
be as.
They're not going to be as flashy.
Yeah.
But gameplay is king, as they say.
Yeah.
The most interesting thing about this to me is that it clearly was part of their plan.
A long time ago.
Yeah. It wasn't. It's not. This is not a reaction to Battlefield 1.
Yeah.
It'll
get accused of that till it comes out.
But you can't make this that fast.
Yeah.
So it's clearly like this was their next step. It's like which was doubly interesting coming on the heels of their most futuristic campaign-wise. The multiplayer isn't all that different from Black Ops 3.
Yeah.
But campaign-wise and setting-wise, Infinite Warfare was by far the craziest, furthest future-flung
without a doubt,
sci-fi Call of Duty. And then so clearly they, maybe they had it in their heads, like, okay, if this one goes a little too far, the next one will be World War II and bring it all back.
Yeah.
And then, who knows, maybe the next one will be called Modern Warfare 5 or something, or 4 or whatever they're on at this point.
So Infinite Warfare, did you end up playing the campaign?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So,
I really liked it.
So it did kind of bring you back to the franchise. Mm-hmm. Will this do that further for someone who had kind of detached from it for a while?
Yeah, I'll probably I'm a big World War II history buff, so I'm always interested in different takes on the various battles and locations and stuff. So I will probably play this just to see it, because it has been a long time since I played a solid World War II shooter.
Yep.
Which is something I never thought I'd say 10 years ago. But
well, there's a couple indies. It's funny because the indies have kind of tried to fill that gap for people who have been asking for World War II games. There's that one game, Verdun, and there's like one other one.
Yeah.
Production value-wise, they're not the best-looking games, but they do kind of provide that experience at least. A lot of trench warfare and things like that. So.
It just doesn't. I mean, even if you go back to like Medal of Honor Allied Assault, like that still has like a little more verve to it than even like something like Verdun to me.
Yeah.
Like the cinematic quality of those games, which have sort of been taken to a ridiculous extreme by now.
Yeah.
And is what everybody complains about. That was one of the things that captured me on those games originally, the old Medal of Honor games, and it's hard to break completely away from that. And it feels like I pretty much trust these guys even to deliver it on this, and I hope they come up with some new scenario, because World War II was a big battle, and we haven't seen a lot of Call of Duty hasn't done naval stuff or
you're right.
a lot of.
But you think it will though?
I don't know.
I mean. I highly doubt it.
I mean, you could at least do some island hopping. I was not a huge fan of World at War.
Yeah.
It was Treyarch kind of they had like 9 months to make that game or something.
Which actually what they created.
I mean, what they pulled off was
impressive
for sure, but like it wasn't all that great, know. And
introduced zombies for the first time.
Well, maybe that was Call of Duty 3 that they had to make in 9 months.
Oh yeah, you're right.
But I did go back and try to play World at War a little while ago, because I decided to do a playthrough of like because Call of Duty kind of has that continuity thing. Where,
right, kind of.
There's a Price in every game.
Right.
And Captain Price is one of his ancestors, or him is in there somewhere. And World at War didn't work right anymore on the 360. Like it didn't play sounds properly, and like
really?
it had like weird ghosty, and I like posted on a message board I was on about like, hey, and people put their it's like the sound's broken, it doesn't work anymore. And basically the answer from like one of my friends at Activision was like, it's old, just give it up.
I mean, I recorded this footage, it's been almost 2 years now for the show, and it played fine.
I tried it on 2 separate this would have been like 4 or 5 years ago.
Oh, okay. Maybe they patched it up since or whatever.
Could have been. Yeah. But like it did not work on any of my 360s. It like the voices weren't playing, and like everything was distorted. It was very weird.
And I mean, look, even though Battlefield 1 is World War I, I also wonder if, because both franchises have kind of gone back in the last 2 entries, if Call of Duty WW2 is going to be compared unfavorably to Battlefield 1. They're kind of putting themselves with that direct comparison. And, with the expansive multiplayer you get in Battlefield 1 with all the vehicles and the big player counts and everything, I just wonder if Call of Duty is going to have some problems sort of matching up with that.
It's possible. I mean, if there's one, for whatever reason, I feel like Sledgehammer might be the most likely one to kind of drop that ball.
Yeah.
Just because they have less experience, I guess. But I mean, I'll give it a shot. I mean, I was skeptical about World War I to some degree on Battlefield 1, too. I think they pulled it off admirably.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, I mean, we'll see more at E3. And
I think we'll see it before E3.
Yeah, but I mean, E3 is where you'll get like kind of the more, the hands-on stuff with the various sites and seeing some in-depth footage of it. And
I honestly wouldn't be surprised if we get the first trailer within the next couple of weeks.
That would fit.
That's typically sort of the schedule that Activision follows with promoting it. So
especially like this, like so many things this week, this kind of feels like, yes, it's true. Just stop. Just hang on. It's coming. Just hang on.
Yeah.
Stop speculating about our terrible banner.
Which it was terrible, by the way. I wish I had the image to show you guys. I'm assuming you've seen it by now. But
makes you wonder if
it looked like a propaganda ad from like the 40s or something.
Well, it makes you wonder if they're going to go back and like tweak it.
Yeah.
Now that reaction is out there.
Well,
I didn't see a lot of positive responses to that.
I was totally fooled. I never dreamed that was a real promotional image for a Call of Duty game, but I was wrong. So, all right, let's move along. Next, we're going to talk about something that was inevitable, and it finally happened yesterday. Palmer Luckey.
Or today, really. Today's his last day.
Right, but it was announced yesterday. Palmer Luckey has left Oculus and Facebook, a company that he was a co-founder of, at least Oculus. Keep in mind, he's already been paid out big time, bigly, for that investment that he made. I don't even know if it was an investment. I mean, a lot of people who worked on the Oculus team haven't been exactly kind to him over the last year.
I mean, it's an investment because he's the one who basically went to Carmack and was like, "Hey, I think we can make this happen," and Carmack was on board and. There's the idea who gets credit for what in terms of building those original devices. Like there seems to be some internal controversy over that among like the original Oculus folks.
Yeah.
But it seems like from what I've read, he's the one that really saw what Carmack had done and had gotten shut down doing by Bethesda, and basically went to Carmack and was like, "Hey, look, like we can do this." And while Oculus seems to be pretty much a distant third right now of the major headsets.
It really does.
Or fourth if you're counting Google Cardboard.
Yeah. Or Samsung VR.
Yeah,
I mean,
Samsung
it goes
VR.
down farther.
The Kickstarter for Oculus Rift was the thing that sort of sparked the VR craze.
It was. There's no.
And by VR craze, I don't mean the consumer craze. I mean the developer craze.
Right.
Suddenly,
and the enthusiast craze.
Yeah, but suddenly the industry saw this as like, oh yeah, we can do this. We can do this now, and everybody jumped on that board. And I think he does deserve credit for kind of starting that fire.
Look at this. So the still was taken on the same day as they shot this video. He's got the same shirt on.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. So look, it's been a bumpy road for him there.
Yeah.
So first, obviously, there's a lawsuit where ultimately they ended up having to give a ton of money to ZeniMax. Not what ZeniMax was looking for completely, but
not as much as they hoped,
but a lot.
And then Carmack's coming back at him now.
Yeah, now Carmack's suing them as well.
But clearly, and some of that is on Facebook, I guess, because there were stories that they pushed that deal through in like 2 weeks.
Right.
Like I was saying, there's obviously there's a lot of speculation that his leaving is related to his where he was investing money in what was essentially a hate group that was promoting internet memes to support conservative
things.
Like it was
paying for trolls.
Yeah,
I mean, he was
more or
basically
less
funding trolls to go on the internet and troll people.
Yeah. And then said he didn't do it, and then he said in an interview, "Yeah, I totally did it." And then the group he was funding then also told him to go screw himself. It was he didn't make a lot of friends in that incident, but I think it's 3 years since the purchase last week, and that feels like a pretty standard amount of time you want to contract the guy running that organization to not work for anybody else. So it might just be his contract ran out. Facebook has no interest in renewing it for various reasons, and it's time to move on. Because you basically want that transition to happen and settle, and they got the product out. They got the touch out. It's he did his job basically, and
I think usually founders are given 5-year contracts whenever their companies are purchased from another
3 to 5. I mean, sometimes it's 3 and then like 2 on retainer
option or
or where they're not. Maybe they're going to meetings once in a while, but they're not like an active participant in the day-to-day business.
It also seemed like kind of what he set out to do was done, right?
Right.
I mean, I don't know that he really wanted to. He's 24.
Yeah, he's very young.
Think about that. Yeah. That's insane. I mean, at 24, do you really want to stay there and kind of build out the company.
Probably not. And I mean, Facebook doesn't.
Once Facebook purchases it, it's going to
him.
do all that anyway.
I think he's more of a liability than anything at this point to them.
Yeah, so, I mean, his job was done pretty much.
Yeah.
He had got the product out. They had done a couple revisions, probably with any ideas that he had that didn't make it into the first revision or whatever, after they had put out kind of the the Kickstarter models, which were junk, basically.
Right.
So his job was kind of done there. But I still, the question I want to pose in this discussion is, was this just bad timing? Because I feel like if we weren't in this current political environment, that he probably would still be there.
Well, I think if he hadn't been part of that political environment in such a negative way, I mean...
But look, I think if he had done the same thing for George W. Bush or whatever...
Well, George W. Bush wasn't getting supported by like supremacist groups pushing memes on billboards.
No, I totally get that. I'm saying is it because of Donald Trump and how Donald Trump is that Lucky ultimately lost his job? Because if he had just been doing the same kind of stuff for a typical conservative candidate, I wonder if he would have ended up losing his job.
If it was like if he'd been like, I don't know, supporting Paul Ryan or something, I don't think that...
Even if he was doing the same thing, like trolling and sending out memes and paying people to send out memes, which is what he allegedly was doing. I think it's because it was for Donald Trump that
partly
this
Donald Trump,
happened.
But it was also because the organization was very easily categorized as a hate group.
Yeah.
Like, that's not cool.
Yeah.
Like, you can't do that. And, like, it makes complete sense that Facebook would want to distance themselves from it. I don't think I mean, I don't have any proof of that. I don't think they early terminated him or anything for this, but I think it definitely was the biggest factor probably in Facebook not wanting to renew that contract. Because...
Did he say if he resigned?
They said, I think most of the statements said he left. He was leaving.
Okay.
He was leaving.
Okay.
Like his time here is ogre, as that Shrek meme would say.
Yeah. I just think it was the perfect crap storm for him.
Yeah, it's all a bunch of bad timing, but whether it happened one way or the other, like it looks how it looks.
Right.
It's probably going to be, maybe a hard road to find a new...
It might be a challenge, yeah.
...job to attach himself to, but at the same time, the man's almost worth $1 billion, and he can probably just start a new... If he finds something else he's as into as he was into the VR thing, he'd probably just start a new company.
He doesn't have to do anything.
No, he doesn't.
For the rest of his life, and neither does any descendants of his for the next, 5 generations.
Yeah, well, we'll see what he does. I mean,
I'm not saying he won't do anything. I'm just saying he doesn't have to. At 24,
right,
his lineage is set for life.
At the same time, never underestimate the ability of a young person to blow a whole lot of money real fast.
It's true. It's definitely true. He doesn't seem like that type because he wears $5 flip-flops. And
probably not, but you never know what someone's going to decide to invest in. And
You're right.
Terrible. Again, he didn't make a very wise investment during the election.
Yeah.
As we saw. Obviously wasn't throwing all his money at it, but I guess we'll see what he gets involved in, and especially off of the controversy and off of whatever his personal beliefs are. Will he double down on that kind of thing, or will he sort of stay in the sort of neutral tech area and try to make some new whatever thing? Maybe he'll decide I'm going to make augmented reality affordable next. Who knows? The augmented reality could probably use that, frankly.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know anything about his interests and all that. What his next move might be. His next move probably just be to hang out for 10 years. That's what I'd do.
That's what I do. You're damn right. That's what I'd do. And kind of going back to what you're talking about, how with his reputation, it might be hard to find a job in the games industry. I don't think that that's because he's a conservative.
No.
There are tons of conservatives in the games industry. No denying that it's
way
dominated.
More than you might think.
Sure. And there's no denying that it is dominated predominantly by people who have liberal thought patterns and whatnot. But it's not like conservative people are ostracized from the games industry. No. Far from it. But it's, again, I believe it's the exception of, what he did.
Yeah.
But two, Donald Trump is kind of like this out-of-bounds thing. I don't think a lot of people who aren't conservative look at people who support Donald Trump necessarily as conservatives.
Yeah. There's a divided party right now. It's very true. And also, the Silicon Valley area, there's, a lot of the tech bros up there are not necessarily super conservative so much as they're like really like kind of Ayn Rand like sort of libertarian style folk. You know, they're I mean they're in sort of a weird little bubble that kind of supports that ethos. But you know, I know plenty of people that have like weird or unusual kind of, you know, non-liberal political views up there that also think Trump is a terrible idea, and so it's, you know, it's not as monolithic one way or the other as people seem to want to paint that area. It's, you know, because it's also like contradictory to some people because you think of, you know, the Bay Area is like this, you know, hippie commune of you know, hate street and all that. But like, but the Valley isn't like, Silicon Valley isn't like that really. It's a, you know, the
it's also almost an hour away.
It's
from
San
very
far away.
People don't realize that a lot of people think it's like a suburb of San Francisco.
No, it's like not. 30 miles away, and with the way the freeway infrastructure is now, which is
2-hour drive,
inadequate. Yeah, it's a 2-hour drive down there in the wrong time of day. Believe me,
pretty crazy.
It's not. And ask any 49er fan about
who has to go there for their games now. Do you think we'll ever see Palmer Luckey again in the games industry? What percentage do you think that we'll see him again?
I probably like, I don't know, like 15-20%.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
I feel like if he makes a next move, it'll be in tech.
Yeah.
Not just gaming. And the tech, and whatever tech I think he would move on to would not just be gaming specific, I think. And I mean, VR isn't gaming specific technically. There's a lot of educational stuff, and I mean, there's a lot of different ways to. So I think his interest, while I'm sure he is a gamer, like I think his interest probably lies in cutting edge tech for the sake of tech more than cutting edge gaming tech specifically.
Yeah, while I don't support what he did during the election or any stuff like that, I do admire him. I mean, he was a young kid who came into an industry that, I mean, this is a big time money bet. Yeah. And he managed to convince people at his age to invest tons of money in his idea. And there's certainly something commendable about that and admirable about that. So
I mean,
I respect
pioneers
him
are not always admirable people. You know?
You're right.
Like Steve Jobs wasn't exactly somebody you wanted to know personally either, it sounds like.
Totally true. So we'll see. I agree with Matt. I think 15% chance we ever see him in games again. But I don't know what that would be. Like, what would I don't? He's not going to come back and like own a development studio.
No, I don't. I mean, like, he could and just have that be.
He could.
He could own a development studio the way we own a blender. You know, it's just like it could just be. It's like just something he has, and every once in a while he pokes his head in. It's like, oh, cool, it still works.
I don't see him doing that.
I don't think that would happen. I think he would. I think if he does something else, like he would move into some other kind of tech or tech development direction that potentially could be used for gaming.
Yeah.
But I don't see that being his focus forever.
Agreed. All right, let's move along. So Matt, you've been playing some Kingdom Hearts.
A little bit.
The last week.
A little bit.
I'm actually going to admit two things in this show. I'm going to admit one later on, but one right now. The first one I'm going to admit is that I've never finished a Kingdom Hearts game.
Wow.
Yeah, I've never managed to make it all the way through one.
So you're an adult, is what
I wouldn't go that far.
And I'm speaking as someone who's finished like all of them. I will say this though: it took me 3 tries to finish Kingdom Hearts 1.
Okay.
When it first came out,
I don't feel so lonely now.
No, when it first came out, I played the beginning. I got to Wonderland.
Okay.
And I got halfway through that and was like, "What is this garbage?" It doesn't control right. The camera is god awful, even for 2002. I don't know what it wants me to do. I don't know, and so I just stopped.
Yeah.
And then like 6 months later, because it was like game. I think it was like Game of the Year time, and people were bringing it up, and I'm like, I'll try it again. So I tried it again. I forced my way through Wonderland, and I got to that damn Tarzan jungle.
Yeah.
And like, I remember specifically because there's a point where you're sliding down vines, like you're swinging across vines, and I hit a point where like I couldn't get past this one. It just felt like the vines went on forever, and it turned out that after you swung over one particular vine, it turned you around automatically. So I was swinging back and forth on the same vine, and I couldn't tell for like 5 minutes. And when I figured it out, I just turned it off, and I was like, okay, we're not doing that.
That is so funny.
And then finally, when Kingdom Hearts 2 was coming, it was like, a few months before Kingdom Hearts 2 was coming out. This is because those first 2 tries were when we still lived in San Francisco, and this was like when did Kingdom Hearts 2 come out? 2006?
I think so.
Like, so it was right before that. I'm like, well, I got to do it.
Yeah.
So I sat down and I finally powered my way through it, finished it 100%, beat Sephiroth, Cloud, and all that stuff. I did everything. I did just absolutely everything. Got to level 100, the whole thing. And I liked, I'm like, okay, I get it now. It's weird that they put the two worst Disney worlds up front. Like, Wonderland and the Tarzan Jungle are two of the worst things in the entire series. And
wow.
Those are the first two worlds you go to. It's not a great first impression.
I am not.
But the rest of it is much better once you get used to it. And I think Kingdom Hearts 2, they refined it into a much better playing game, even if it doesn't make any goddamn sense.
That is what always turned me off, was playing it. Like, I just felt like it was way too simplistic, and I felt like I could just close my eyes and play it with my butt and like still get through like a lot of the battles.
Well, I mean, hardcore fans will always tell you to play on proud difficulty now, and especially on this remaster, because they say basically that makes it more of like a God of War on hard kind of thing, as opposed to just a sleepwalk through the. You are very powerful in this game, even very early on. If you've leveled up a few times, you are always on the normal difficulty, comfortably ahead of the curve from the enemies. So the proud difficulty, and then critical is also an extra difficulty on 2 in the final mix in this collection. So you might actually want to bump it up to proud and see.
It wasn't even the difficulty for me though. It was that the combat didn't feel. And look, this is going back to when I was playing a lot of Ninja Gaiden and stuff like that. The combat just did not feel very responsive or very deep. It felt really floaty and very simple.
Well, that is very true of the first game still, I think. 2 and Birth by Sleep, I feel they might surprise you.
Okay.
They're much better playing games in terms of how the combat works. More fluid, more options, more interesting. 1 is still... I'm playing... I dabbled with the other games just to see what they looked like in the new remaster, but most of my time has been spent playing Kingdom Hearts 1 because I'm going to go through the whole thing, all of them, because I haven't played any of the Kingdom Hearts games. The last Kingdom Hearts game I played was Birth by Sleep on the PSP, and I haven't touched any of them since then. And 1 and 2 even before that. And the final mix games have a bunch of stuff in them that added stuff, new bosses, and so. And I never played them because those were only in Japan. My girlfriend played them in Japanese, but I don't have the patience to play untranslated games anymore.
Yeah, me either.
I'm not that young at this point. I played Shenmue untranslated with a guide printed out next to me for each dialogue interaction translated in English. But if I saw my younger self doing that now, I'd just be like, stupid kid. Like, what are you doing? Like, that's so dumb. Just wait.
And see, I'm not a big Disney fan either. I've lived in LA now for, I guess, 11 years, and I've been to Disney twice. Yeah, and both times, one time was for a gaming event, and the other time was my sister was in town, and she's like, I want to go to Disneyland. I live on the East Coast. I need to go.
I do like Disney. I'm not I mean, I've been to Disney since we lived here. I've been to Disneyland more times than I can count.
Yeah.
But like, I enjoy it. I haven't gone much in the last few years because they've upped the admission price to the point that it's like a down payment on a car. But like,
yeah, I know, and it went up again this year, right?
Yeah, and the worst part is now California Adventure is actually worth going to. So the park hopper, it's like almost $200 now.
I know. When I went there with my sister like a year and a half ago, I was shocked at not just how expensive to get in it was, but how expensive everything is. Like, I think between her and I, we probably spent $400 that day?
Easy.
Yeah.
No problem.
And I mean, we had like one like hamburger or something. Like, it was just outrageous how expensive it was.
And it's, I mean, back, what was that? When did I get? I was like 2008, I want to say. We got annual passes, like Southern California, like resident annual passes. And I think it cost less to get an annual pass then than it does to get in for one day now.
Wow.
It was like $180 or something for the year's pass, and
they know they got the parents.
Now I think it's like $180 just to get the park hopper for one day.
I mean, no matter what, the parents are going to pay.
Oh yeah,
that's bottom line. If somebody comes all the way from the East Coast out here, they're not going to walk into the gate and be like, "Oh, that's too expensive."
Well, that's what they sell it as, is like the memories are priceless,
right? Yeah. Well, how about the memories of this Kingdom Hearts game?
Well, I'll tell you this much: there are very few games out right now that you will get more bang for your buck on than this collection. Because,
so it's called Kingdom Hearts 1.5 plus 2.5 HD Remix. Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
And then, do you even know all the games that are in this collection?
Yeah.
Can you name them all?
Yeah.
Go for
So
it.
there's Kingdom Hearts 1 Final Mix, or maybe it's 1.5. I don't know if they changed it because it's a remaster.
Hey, wait, what is that? What is the 1.5 Final Mix?
That's just the remastered version of Kingdom Hearts 1.
Okay.
Kingdom Hearts 1 Final Mix, which is the second version that came out in Japan with added content.
Okay.
Which we never got before now.
It's so confusing to someone who doesn't play.
We got it on PS. So the remaster on PS3 and this one are the same thing, except now on the PS4, all these games run at 1080p, 60 frames a second.
Okay.
And they're gorgeous for what they are. I mean.
They haven't rebuilt the models.
They haven't rebuilt everything. They built from the ground up. Everybody's facial expressions in the first game is still kind of terrible, but like the timing of all the dialogue is awkward and weird because it was a 2002 PS2 game. But but it looks great. It plays better. It runs well. Kingdom Hearts 2, I guess there's streamers that saying it has, and speedrunners are saying there's some glitches in it. Apparently, they've at least fixed the glitches that were new to the English version with a day one patch that has brought it up to parity with the Japanese version. But there's still some glitches there. But maybe Square will fix them. Who knows? You can't promise anything with Square these days because sometimes they fix, sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
So you've got Kingdom Hearts 1 Final Mix, and then you've got after that you have
2.
No, it's not. 2 is not next. It's the card game that was on the Game Boy Advance. So it's Chain of Memories, Rechain of Memories.
Rechain, R-E colon chain.
Yes, because Chain of Memories came out on the Game Boy Advance.
Right.
And then they made a PS2 version called Rechain of Memories, which turned it into a full 3D action game with the card battle system in it. And now this is Rechain of Memories, like remastered. And you can play through the whole thing like that. That's the story of what happens between Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2.
Right.
And introduces the Organization 13 guys in the gray and black hoods that show up out of nowhere. If you just jump to Kingdom Hearts 2, you're like, who is all these people? Why is all this happening? And then you have 358 over 2 days, or whatever the hell that is. That is a.
What is that? What does that mean, Matt? I've never known what that means.
I used to know that. I believe because it covers like the lost year between Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, and Roxas, who is the nobody of Sora that was created when he lost his heart in the first game. I don't know. But basically, he's the character you start out playing as in Kingdom Hearts 2, and you're like, who the hell is this blonde kid?
Yeah.
And this kind of tells his story and his relationship with the Organization 13 guys, his days in the Organization 13. It's really a pretty mediocre DS game, is what it is. And I think it's called 358 over 2 because it covers that many days. And it's about 2 characters. I don't know. Like it's like that Infinite Undiscovery bullshit. They pick 2 words and it's just like that's the name.
Yeah.
I think they pull them off a list somewhere. I
mean, look, there's a lot of franchises
game,
that have tons of sequels and entries, but to me, the nomenclature of the naming for this franchise is just completely bizarre.
Oh, it is.
It's so hard to keep track of.
Yeah, and I think that's been part of it. And some of those games probably got put in there, just to stall for time for Kingdom Hearts 3 because Nomura was busy with 15 or 13 verses or whatever. And sometimes these games feel like diversionary tactics. So 358 over 2 or whatever it is that the game is not in this. They cut it all down to a little movie. It's just a movie that kind of covers all the cutscenes.
So it fills the gaps with the story.
So you instead of spending, that game took me like 50 hours to do everything. So this is much more efficient.
Yeah. And
no one should spend that amount of time playing that game.
Yeah.
So yeah, you just watch this movie and you've got it. And then you're ready to move into Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix, which is Kingdom Hearts 2 with added content that was only in Japan until the remasters came out over here. And it's probably the best of the series.
Yeah.
And kind of it catches you up to sort of, resolves a lot of sort of the plot lines in the first game, but also not entirely. And then after that, you go from Kingdom Hearts 2 to Recoded. Recoded was a DS port of what used to be a mobile phone game, I think. And it's basically like a weird computer virus thing. Like it was almost Tron-like what they're doing in it. I never finished it because it was really boring.
Is it an action game still?
Yeah, it was an action game. That is the one that they've reduced to a Or was that on the prologue thing?
See, even you
No,
don't
it was
know.
not. Dream Drop Distance was on the prologue thing. So this is
I forgot about that one.
that's the one that was reduced to a movie on the Kingdom Hearts 2.5 collection. And then the other one that's the full game is Birth by Sleep, which is a PSP game, which is a prequel to the entire series and tells the story of the 3 Keyblade masters that came before Riku, Sora, and Kairi, because Kairi gets a Keyblade at some point for reasons that are not explained. Birth by Sleep, some people think it's continuity breaking and ruins the lore, but I thought, from what I played of it on PSP, it's actually probably the best combat system in the game.
Wow.
It feels really good. You play as each of the 3 characters through their kind of individual stories. One of those characters I don't find particularly interesting, so that's kind of a downside. But it was kind of they tried to give you some answers about the lore of the game series without giving the answers they're planning to give, I guess, in Kingdom Hearts 3. And it was sort of, again, like I said, a stalling tactic. But it's a good game. If you like these games, I think Birth by Sleep is one of the jewels of the series. And then once you're done with all 6 of those, you can then move on to 2.8 final prologue chapter, whatever the crap. I don't know. I don't remember the name of the whole name of that game. But it's then you got Dream Drop Distance, which seems to bring you up to speed in terms of Riku and Sora, preparing for Kingdom Hearts 3. And then you've got the 0.2 prologue thing, which I believe takes place between Birth by Sleep and Kingdom Hearts 1. Or maybe that's the other way around. Yeah. But
how many games total are on this thing?
There's 6 games. There's 4 games and 2 movies that are summaries of games you probably wouldn't want to play.
And how much does it sell for?
I believe it was 60.
50
or 60. I don't remember. It's one of those things I ordered from Amazon and I don't remember.
Because you're a Prime member, so you get it.
Right, so I get it for 20% off or whatever. But
gotcha.
One way or the other, that's a lot of game time for the price of a regular game.
Would you recommend it for someone like me who hasn't really been a fan of the Kingdom Hearts games?
I mean, are you curious about it at all?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Then, I'd say give it a try, and if Kingdom Hearts 1 doesn't do it for you, just jump to Kingdom Hearts 2.
Can you jump around and play any of the 6 games in any order you want?
Yeah.
Okay.
The main menu is just all 6. You pick whichever one you want. And they have separate trophy sets and platinums.
Each game has its own trophies.
Oh yeah, and they're no joke.
Wow.
There's one trophy that wants you to finish Kingdom Hearts 1 in less than 15 hours, which is
that seems like
it's
a tough task.
I mean, you put it on beginner difficulty, you could probably burn through it pretty fast, but I wouldn't try it as my first run through.
Yeah.
And there's you gotta do some high difficulty stuff to get the platinums on these games. They're no pushovers, but it's cool that they're there. And I think they were there for the remasters on PS3 as well. But I didn't actually play any of those because by the time I got around to trying to jump in on those, they announced this, and I'm like, well, I'd rather play them on PS4. So this is my first time really dabbling with the remasters at all, and they're great. These games are probably never going to look better than this.
I feel like this collection has kind of flown under the radar.
Yeah, maybe.
There's really not much fanfare for them. Obviously, a lot of publications
the fan base is
didn't
excited,
review it.
But I think a lot of publications don't want to spend the time it's going to take to go through these things because it is basically just an.
Well, they've also already reviewed all the games.
They've also already gone through them on the PS3. I mean, they're the same. They're the same collections. They just the res is better and the frame rate's doubled. And that's no minor thing. Yeah. For playing it, but I feel like. All you need to do is be like, read the review of the other games and pretend they're 60 frames a second now. It's like you're done.
Any updates for PS4 Pro with this collection?
I'm not sure what the differences are, but on my Pro, they're all just rock solid 60.
Okay.
And there was a problem, I guess, with Kingdom Hearts 2. People with early copies said that there was a problem with cutscenes on the English version that was not in the Japanese version, where the cutscene would freeze for a split second before cutting to another camera angle. Everyone would all the characters would just stop for a split second, and you could just barely perceive it. And apparently that's gone, from what I can see. I looked at a few cutscenes and I didn't see that at all. There's still, I guess, some glitches. Most of the glitches people are complaining about seem to be speedrun related. Like a lot of the glitches speedrunners use to complete these games, as in the acknowledged standard speedrun method, don't work the same. So that's what they're mad about.
Poor babies.
The main thing, there's a couple bosses with some weird, I think Vexen's boss fight, he has a thing where he charges up his guitar or whatever, and in the PS4 version, he starts with it fully charged, and that's not how it's supposed to go. And I think one of the last bosses in Kingdom Hearts 2 starts in his second form or something.
Oh,
like
that's
it's
odd.
like weird little glitches like that, and so people are hoping that Square fixes that. I haven't seen any of that personally because obviously I've not even gotten more than an hour into Kingdom Hearts 2. So
Has this made you more
Grain of
excited
salt.
or less excited for Kingdom Hearts 3?
my excitement for Kingdom Hearts 3 is in a tiny box in a corner somewhere because I'm just like, yeah, you call me when you got a date.
Do you think
boys.
they put this out a little too early, maybe?
Maybe. I mean, I
Like
don't
maybe
know.
they should have waited a little close, because I don't think we're going to see Kingdom Hearts 3 until maybe like the end of the generation.
I mean, I would maybe guess end of next year in
That's
Japan.
what I'm thinking too. Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe they'll actually have a simultaneous worldwide release this time. I wonder.
Yeah.
I wonder how much of this is Disney cracking the whip, saying like, "Will you get this property out already?" I mean, they own a lot of these characters,
yeah, they do.
and they haven't been able to do anything with them for a while.
And they did have that kind of joint announcement that they made. I guess it was middle of last year, something like that, where like a couple of Disney execs came on like a developer doc and were like,
Although
hey.
you can see like in the chat, like there's people like, it's like, no, Demix has the guitar, thank you. It's
Yeah.
on my don't underestimate the fan base of this series. Like the people love this game.
Oh no, I know. I mean, if you're gonna mash up Square
Yeah,
with Disney,
anybody.
obviously you're gonna have a lot of fans.
And also, Kingdom Hearts 1 to me is interesting where it's like it was always a little off in some ways. Like the Disney stuff near the beginning, like they're trying to be funny and wacky like Disney stuff is, but it just doesn't work because
It's Final Fantasy.
it's
and-
well, because like the voices are there, the visuals are there, but it's like the timing's wrong. There's no sense of comedic timing. In part because probably a PS2 engine wasn't up to doing it that well, and also because you're trying to translate through like 3 different levels of language and
you would think Disney would have been all over that, though.
there's only so much you can do. I
guess.
don't think it's a coincidence that the games as they moved on moved further and further away from the Disney characters. Like the Disney stuff
you're right, yeah.
became almost more of like a thing you went to each world to see everything.
To see the Disney thing, yeah.
And then, but otherwise, the story was basically about these other characters. In part, other than Donald and Goofy hanging out with you, and Mickey Mouse shows up once in a while.
Yeah.
But like, they don't really try to do the wacky Disney scenes anymore. And like, you watch Kingdom Hearts 1 now, and you're like, oh, like this, or even just like there's a lot of weird choices in there. There's a lot of weird pauses between dialogue. It was just how it was then, and they didn't do anything to tighten that up because I think it's just a straight up-res port remaster. You sit there and you question once again why David Boreanaz is voicing Squall. Squall calls himself Leon now for reasons that are never explained. Like it's very weird, and you don't really get why the Final Fantasy characters are there. Like they don't do anything.
I mean, it didn't make sense to me when I played the first one.
It finally made Cloud look cool, I guess. I don't
Do you
know
think
where he got
people
the
who have already?
Batwing.
Is there any reason for people who have already played all these games to buy this package? The
Well,
best-looking versions, I
think,
guess?
yeah, I mean, these are ostensibly going to be the definitive versions of these
Forever,
games.
probably.
Yeah, I don't see.
I mean, we're never going to see a 4K version of these games.
I don't know
probably.
what you would do for that. No,
Yeah.
I mean, you're already some of the pre-rendered movies in this are already pushing it. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, they look good, the upscale, but you can see
They're not going to
these were not.
re-render
Yeah, these were
yeah.
not rendered at 1080p, and you push them up to 4K, and you're going to be in trouble. Like
Yeah.
I think. There's a couple shots, the famous attract screen one with the instrumental of the Simple and Clean song, and I remember when we first saw that on the review copy we got for PS2 at Tech TV. I remember our one of our APs, Sonia, who loved Disney, cried when
Yeah,
she saw it
that's
because
right. I remember
because
you
it was
telling
like
me that.
man, the Disney stuff you'd never seen it look this good in a game before
Yeah.
when they made this.
No, you're
And
right.
It was
Yeah.
It was amazing to see.
Well, you hadn't really seen it that good digitally, period.
Yeah.
Because it's not like there was a lot of like animated like CG movies
Right.
coming out back then.
And Disney
so.
hadn't gotten on the whole we're going to remaster stuff for DVD and Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Now you can get almost any Disney movie and it looks pristine
Oh, yeah.
on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
But back then it was almost like Disney had not really taken those steps into that world yet.
Well, there wasn't Blu-ray. It
No,
didn't exist. So
But it's cool. It's cool to see that. It's cool to relive that if you had any nostalgia for this game that was then playing on your nostalgia for your childhood favorite movies that was playing on nostalgia for the fairy tales they stole it from.
Right.
It's like a triple whammy on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say give it a shot. It's it definitely plays smoother to me now just because it's in 60 frames a second. I'm still
Makes
kind
a
of
big difference.
still kind of struggling with Kingdom Hearts 1, where Kingdom Hearts 1 has a little bit of I wouldn't call it jank, but it's just the combat doesn't react as fast as you'd think you'd want it to.
Isn't that the definition of jank?
No, because I think it's working as intended. It's not the way I want it to work.
Maybe we should define jank.
In part because Birth by Sleep and Kingdom Hearts 2 changed how it plays into a much more fluid kind of God of War style thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of people hated that, especially because Kingdom Hearts 2 brought in QTE sequences and stuff like that. But I don't mind that stuff. I think it gives you an opportunity. It gives them an opportunity to do a more cinematic thing, and I get what they're after there. And if any game earns
stuff like
cinema
that.
stuff, it's this one.
This is it. Yeah.
And it's if it bothers you, I guess just focus on the fact you don't understand what the hell's going on. I think voice talent is really good. They got some top level talent. It's mostly all the real Disney voices, all the way up to Jeremy Irons and stuff doing Scar and Lion King and all that stuff. And Christopher Lee is one of the bad guys in 2. I mean, they got some top flight voice talent, especially for the time, because 2006 was not when you were really seeing celebrities sign on for video games.
Yeah.
It was all the pull of Disney, possibly the pull of Disney's contracts. I don't know how much that has to do with anything, but if you love Kingdom Hearts, there's no reason not to play this. It looks great. They've never looked better. And if you're curious, you could do worse.
Certainly a good deal.
I heard things.
Yeah.
And again, like I said, if Kingdom Hearts 1 doesn't grab you because it is a little archaic even by today's standards, and even as someone who's a fan of the series, it took me several tries to finish it back in the day. Just jump to Kingdom Hearts 2 and see if that does it for you. Kingdom Hearts 2 doesn't grab you, it's probably not for you.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. I'm going to talk about a Marvel property now. We moved from Disney to Marvel. Guardians of the Galaxy, the Telltale series, was finally unveiled in full yesterday. We had gotten a little teaser trailer, which really was kind of the definition of a teaser trailer. It was literally just like a Walkman and a cassette tape floating through space. That's all we got. We got the full Monty yesterday. Matt, are you excited about it now that you've seen it? Yeah. First of all, are you a fan of the movie Guardians of the Galaxy? I am a huge fan. I love that movie.
I think it's I'd put it in my top 3 Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, easy.
Okay. And they're all starting to come together now. Aren't the Guardians of the Galaxy finally going to start interacting with the Avengers?
Guardians will be in Infinity War with the Avengers.
Which seems insane.
Is that next year?
Yeah.
Shit, that's next year.
Because it's really the bad guy that's crossing over, right?
Yeah, Thanos.
And therefore they are coming over as well.
Yeah, Thanos is, after having been teased since 2012, pacing, boys.
Yeah. It is crazy that they even mentioned him back then.
I mean, it makes sense in the sense that he's one of the major Marvel Universe villains, and when they showed that teaser, the teaser at the end of Avengers 1, I was like, oh my god, it's Thanos, and everyone else around me was like, the what? Who?
That? Yeah.
If you aren't a real Marvel nerd, you're not going to know who the guy with the chin is when he turns around like that. But if you were in the know, you're like, oh my god, and then of course the question about Infinity War is because here's the thing, Thanos is a cool-looking villain, the idea of the Infinity Gauntlet and the Infinity Gems is really cool. All the Infinity stories are kind of terrible. And because the thing is, it gives Thanos the power of a god, and then they have to come up with some really cheesy way that he defeats himself, basically, right? And it's never been satisfying to me. And I'm wondering if anyone can figure this out. It's the Russo brothers who made Winter Soldier and Civil War, but they got their work cut out for them because Thanos looks cool and sounds cool, and Josh Brolin is a cool choice, but good luck making him interesting is kind of my worry on this one. But Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is coming out in May, and who cares?
Yeah.
Because that movie, by all reports, is going to be exactly more the same what we love from the first one, except more so. And it's like I always say, the plots and the stories of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies are not really anything special most of the time, but I go see them because I want to spend time with those characters.
Yeah.
And
I felt like
Guardians of the Galaxy did that better than almost any of the others.
I feel like Guardians of the Galaxy was a better Star Wars movie than most of the Star Wars movies.
It was a great space opera movie. Yeah, you're right. It really had that Star Wars feel.
Yeah.
Before
and the levity to it, and the that's so cute element to it. I just thought it freaking nailed it.
And the humanity to it.
There's for real.
You would, and they pull it out of the characters you would never think of at the end of the first movie, where Rocket's incredibly distraught about Groot, and Drax sits down and pets him.
Yeah.
And like Rocket's like, what the hell? And then like he just sort of accepts it because that's where the character has come, and it's great. It gets you.
I really loved it. I thought it was a fabulous movie. Now that we've seen the game, though, how do you feel about it?
I mean, they're. I don't think they're on James Gunn's level when it comes to presenting these characters.
Yeah.
And
I was a little let down. Look, it's their art style. It's Telltale's quote unquote art style.
Yeah, and I think.
Does it work with this?
I think it works for like Star-Lord, but I don't like how Groot looks.
Me either.
I don't like how Rocket looks.
No, well, yeah, Rocket is passable.
Then the trick there is that Rocket has looked real different through the years. I mean, there's no one way to do Rocket, but Groot almost doesn't seem like he fits the rest of the group for some reason. Maybe.
I mean, I didn't think he really did in the movie either. He was so unique.
I just mean in the sense that like he looks like his character design is from a different art style almost.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And then like Thanos is actually a really cool looking version of Thanos, but he also doesn't really seem like he fits the aesthetic of the game.
I wonder too if people knew this universe from Marvel instead of the films.
Oh, no.
I'm guessing that's you.
No. Dude, when they announced the movie, I had to look them up.
Okay.
Because here's the thing.
So I'm just wondering if there are people that know if maybe these characters look more close to what they don't.
No. These are straight up the movie.
Okay.
I mean, Thanos looks like, more or less looks like he does in the comics, but like Thanos in the movies looks like he does in the comics.
Right.
The Guardians of the Galaxy, I mean, the thing with Guardians of the Galaxy is like that property is from like the late 70s.
Why did they dig, of all things, why did they dig that one up?
Because it was a blank slate. They could do whatever they wanted.
I guess
and it took them off of Earth and let them play a little bit. And I think that was the key. But like Star-Lord in the movies, he's Chris Pratt is like the quippy kind of
right.
sensey.
He's like Han Solo.
Yeah, but like he's not like that, and it wasn't like that. He is now. They
wrote it. The comics.
The comics always will shift to match the movies. That's how they do it.
That's marketing.
But he was around in the old Guardians. He was more of like a space police, like gruff dude.
Oh.
And he disappeared. Like he stopped appearing in the comics in like around 1980, and like popped up again in Annihilation after like almost like I think it was like 20 some years as like a character. Suddenly he's back. Peter Quill's back as Star-Lord in Annihilation. And he was more of like a more gruff sort of like, here we go again kind of thing.
Wow.
And then like they just, every male lead in the Marvel Cinematic Universe has to be kind of Tony Stark light to keep the quippy, sarcastic levels at what we expect from these movies.
Because that's what gets the non-nerds into the films.
What keeps them entertained. It's what keeps the normals entertained.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
But Rocket had a implied Cockney accent most of his existence.
Oh, wow.
Which you can hear in Marvel vs. Capcom 3. I guarantee you, if he's in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, he will not sound like that anymore. So they changed and the team was very different. Drax is a very different character in the comics. He's also dead for a long time. He was an Earthman who was like reincarnated into like an alien super body to kill Thanos. Like his whole point is to kill Thanos. Whereas in the movie, obviously, he's an alien who his family was killed by Thanos, so that's why he wants to kill Thanos.
Right.
I mean, from what I've read, I prefer the movie version because they're just more fun and less contrived and tons of weird continuity behind them. Certainly Yondu. Yondu in the comics has the bow and arrow, but he's got a giant mohawk that's like 3 feet tall, and he's more of like an elfin sort of like lithe character. Whereas like I love the Michael Rappaport version.
Yeah.
Although I do notice in the trailers for the new movie, his mohawk is taller in this one. So clearly he's working his way up to the comic size mohawk. And maybe by 3 we'll have the 3 foot tall mohawk on him.
What about squeezing this property into the Telltale framework? Because I just want to say, after playing Life is Strange, I have not enjoyed Telltale games as much since then. And I got a free download code for the new season of The Walking Dead. And Matt, I literally played the first 7 minutes of the initial episode and quit. Because it was right at the beginning. There was like a part where stuff is happening and there's no cues on screen telling you what to do. And I'm like, die. And I just feel like I've run out of my love for that style of gameplay.
Yeah, I mean, I like Batman.
You know what? I didn't. Like,
it was okay.
I played the first episode of that, and I got about 30 minutes into the second one, and I was like,
I mean, it was okay. It was fine. I think they're going to struggle to match The Wolf Among Us. I feel like that's the peak of their stuff so far. I mean, speaking to someone who wasn't a huge Walking Dead fan anyway.
Yeah.
Game
of the year, though.
Yeah, well, that part of my problem with that was like I don't give a shit about The Walking Dead, you know.
Yeah.
And I even less of one now.
I mean, the game has nothing to do with the TV show.
Right.
It's just the same title.
I just don't, the zombie thing is kind of played out to me even back then.
I think a lot of people would agree with that.
And now I don't even, it's like Days Gone. I did not care about Days Gone until we saw that E3 reveal last year.
Right.
Like, oh, that seems like a more interesting, because I don't care that the zombies. I care that the gameplay mechanics and that look
Right.
like at least something I haven't done before
Yeah.
to some degree. But like, I'm more interested in Telltale's takes on these things in terms of what they're going to do with these licenses. The main problem with the Guardians of the Galaxy Telltale game, I think, is that they're up against such high quality films that I don't see them matching. Because Batman maybe is not as
All right.
you get some leeway on that one. And also in part because you can do like your own version of Batman and people can accept it. Just like Arkham, the Arkham games have their own version of Batman.
For sure.
And you accept it as that's how this Batman is. The Guardians do not have that. Everybody's picture of the Guardians, more or less, is the movies, and so you're going to inevitably be drawing comparisons to one of and probably two of, come May, probably two of the best movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I'm concerned too about the comedy, the levity.
Right. Because
that's not something Telltale has traditionally done exceptionally
and they
well.
certainly haven't done it in the vein of how James Gunn does it in these movies.
Which I don't know if you know this or not, but I worked with James Gunn for like 2 years. Whenever I was the VP of digital at Viacom, I ran Spike.com, and we did a series with James Gunn. It was called PG Porn. And basically what it was a really genius idea. It was basically like he'd shoot a mini show like it was a porn movie, and then when it came time to have sex, something would always happen so that they never had sex. It was actually like a brilliant mini series, and dude, it blew up Spike.com. Like it went huge, and then the folks at Viacom didn't like the fact that it had the word porn in the title because obviously our marketing and sales team would take ad buys for Dove or Downy or whatever, and their pre-roll would run because PG Porn was huge. I mean, we would put up a new episode, it would do, before the YouTube days, it would do 2 or 3 million views in a couple days, and so all their ad inventory would just get sucked up by PG Porn. And they got so mad that they're like, look, either you change the title or we want you to drop the series. And we're like, drop the series? It does 3 million views in 24 hours. And James Gunn said no. He's like, there's no way we're going to do PG porn without calling it porn. And so we ended up having to drop the series. I don't know if anybody ever else picked it up. I don't think so. But we worked closely with him. And knowing him back then, I guess that was 2008 or 2009, never would have guessed that he was going to go on to do what he's doing now.
I don't think he would have either.
I mean, as a promotional thing for PG Porn, we went to the AVN one year, which is like this porn convention. I don't know if it even still happens this way, but it would happen the same exact time as CES in Las Vegas. So we went to CES, we shot that, and then we went and did the AVN convention with him. He was the host who walked around and did all the stand-ups and interacted with all the porn stars and everything. And, I mean, I hung around with him all day for 2 days, and I just never would have guessed that this guy was going to become what he is. I mean, he was a really cool guy. He was really nice. But when you're around some people who are, really freaking smart, and you're just like, damn, this person is way more intelligent than me, and they're going to go on and do huge freaking things that I could only dream of doing. I never got that vibe from him. Great guy and all that, but, man, he is blown up. It's really crazy to see.
I remember we did some interviews with him near the end of G4, and he was really great because he was on Lollipop Chainsaw. We did some of that.
Yeah.
And then I saw him. It was the right before it was the Christmas before Guardians came out. Guardians 1. I saw him at a party, a Christmas party I was at, and I stopped and I said hey, it looks really cool, and it's the first Marvel movie my mom wants to see because
That's a big deal.
Because she loves the song. She likes the music. You know. And I was like, yeah, how's it going? How is it working with Marvel and all this? And he's like, he's like, they're letting us do anything I want. Like, it's crazy. Like, I don't know if it's gonna be any. He's like, I hope it's good. But they're letting us do whatever. Like, he's like, I know it's like it's incredibly creatively freeing, and we're making exactly the movie we want to make, and I hope everybody likes it. But it's like we're deep in post right now, and I'm like, he's like, I think it might be good. You know.
I mean,
and it was great.
Yeah,
it's also notable. You know, like you said, it's notable that it's the first Marvel movie that Marvel Studios put the director's name on. When the credits start up on Guardians 1, it says a James Gunn film, and that's the only Marvel movie no other Marvel movie before that says that. And they did that without telling him.
Wow.
Like, he didn't know that until they saw one of the cuts, and he's like, I didn't ask for that. He didn't know. They just did it because they decided. Marvel Studios decided this movie is so much his movie, we're going to call it a James Gunn film.
I mean, one thing I'll say is his story is really inspiring. Yeah. Because this happened.
And it comes out of Troma, which is, again, like, you want inspiring indie film stories, Troma is kind of the home of that sort of thing.
I mean, he went from creating web shorts for Spike.com and getting paid, I think we paid him like $3,000 or $4,000 an episode.
Yep.
To this in less than 10 years. I mean, the first Guardians of the Galaxy was like 7 years later. Yeah. Like, it just shows you that no matter how down on your luck you think you are, and how out of it you may think you are, man, there's always hope to completely turn it around.
And he seems like as far as I know, and as far as I've interacted with him, he's a really good dude.
The porn stars all knew him.
And he
loves. They knew him by name. Hey, James.
And he loves animals. He's a giant animal person.
Loves horror movies, too.
Walks around with a raccoon that Rocket Raccoon's based on his shoulder for all the red carpet premieres and stuff.
Well, after PG Porn was canceled, he kept pitching us on stuff. And everything he pitched us after that was horror. Everything. It's like, horror shorts. And I'm like, you can't really build tension in like 90 seconds. Like, I don't know if that's going to work. I actually now that I think about it, I turned down several pitches from James Gunn. Think about that. Crazy to think about. But anyway,
at least you weren't working for Marvel.
Yeah. But anyway, I don't know. I'm really kind of nervous about the Guardians of the Galaxy thing. I think maybe because I hold that film so sacred, more so than some of the other stuff. Because like I like The Walking Dead, but The Walking Dead was based off the graphic novel. It wasn't based off the TV show. And I'm not like a huge Batman fan. I like Batman, but I'm not like a Batman fan. So this is maybe the first time they're taking over a property that I feel like I have some personal agency built into. And
I have a lot of personal interest in Back to the Future. I mean, that's one of my favorites.
I never played the Back to the Future series.
I mean, they're fine.
Yeah.
It's not how I would have done it, as James Cameron once said about Alien 3.
Right.
But I can, it makes sense that those Back to the Future games like launched the Telltale ship.
Yeah.
Kind of. You go back and play them now, they're not so much, but they at least took it in some interesting places. But that property is probably the one that meant the most to me until this one. Because again, like I said with Batman, I do love Batman, but there's so much room for different versions of Batman that, like, even if Telltale's version of Batman was terrible, it would have been like, okay, it's another bad Batman idea.
Yeah, because almost all of them are.
There's been a few of them. Some of them a little more high profile than others.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about Destiny 2. So, another game that was leaked over and over and over again, and I feel like this may have actually been a case where they did not follow their marketing plan. They just straight up said, man, we're sick of these freaking leaks. We're going to put this stuff out. So we get 2 days in a row. First, we get a little teaser trailer, which is like a bar scene. And then yesterday, we get the full Monty, the full trailer, 2+ minutes long.
Bar scene with Cade 6, which is Nathan Fillion's character. Right. Very wise to lead with him.
Probably so. What's your first impression? Now, again, we've talked about this before. I played Destiny. I think it's maybe our first game eval. I think it was our first ever game eval. Before the site even launched, I got some review copy and played it, and it was supposed to serve as like an example of our video review, so people could see what kind of video reviews we were going to do, which we ultimately ended up stopping. But I played it through. I played the multiplayer for a while. You obviously had a much bigger affinity for it than I did, played it much longer than I did. What are your first impressions of this, having seen this first look? And again, no gameplay in this. It's all cinematics.
I mean, it's nice that they're clearly they've got some characters here. They've got some narrative plans. They're focusing on the Cabal, which I think is the most interesting of the enemies in the game. Because the Cabal are the only enemies that are not a direct Halo rip. to me.
Yeah.
They're a Warhammer 40K riff, which is a much more interesting idea. They're also, to me, the most satisfying things to pop the head of in those games.
You're right.
Like all the atmosphere comes out of their suit and stuff. It's great. So I like that what they're focusing on there. I like that they're focusing on Cade Six because he's probably the best character of the leader class group that like you answered to. Because that was the thing about like the later DLC expansions for the first game was the problem with the other one was like there was just no characters, there's nothing to grab onto,
nothing to remember,
and they
want you to remember a little floating droid,
right? But they brought back in the DLC, they brought back like kind of the constant radio chatter that defined how Halo's story was told.
Yeah,
with all these, and all of a sudden these 4 characters that you continually go back to that room and get your upgrades from. All of a sudden I knew who they were.
Yeah,
all of a sudden I had an idea what they were, what their relationship to each other was, like what was going on, and it was like it was in one little set of missions, they got me more involved with any of those characters than the whole vanilla game.
Yeah.
And hopefully they're continuing that. And these trailers do seem like they're really pushing hard for the character of you could almost believe this was a Mass Effect trailer
for sure
in some way. I mean, in how written it is in terms of presenting you with characters you care about on top of, because I don't think the overarching world story is going to be particularly satisfying in this series ever. Because I feel like they don't really know what that is.
Yeah.
But if you can tell some interesting character-driven stories on a micro level, you'll make me happy anyway.
I think that they led with exactly what they needed to lead with. They, just like you said, they introduced characters that you may actually care about. Because that was the thing with me with Destiny. It just felt like it had no personality.
No, it was very sterile.
It was just sterile, and I just felt like it was mindless too. The gameplay was mindless. It felt like to me, and
so I've said multiple times. I would sit there. I would watch the load screen with a ship, and I'd be like, "Why am I playing this?"
Yeah, and with games that feel mindless while you play them, a lot of times they can be saved by characters, and Destiny didn't really have any that you could remember. And to lead off with not just focus on like one character, although the second trailer kind of focuses on 2 characters for the most part. Not only does it focus on one, it's lighthearted and it's fun. And like really the only time you got that was from like your droid in it was so like
deathly. A couple times, and the Nathan Fillion character would crack wise once in a while, but it was out of nowhere. It didn't feel like it fit.
Because it was just like, it was like a square peg in a round hole.
And like, especially, I know everybody makes fun of it anyway, but it's like, although the one memorable line in the whole game was, the wizard came from the moon, which they cut because everybody made fun of it.
Right.
And then like I think the other defining cutscene of the original game was where you go see the leader guy at the top of the tower or whatever, and he's like, I could tell you all the things about the things that happened, but I won't. And you're like, why? Like, it's not like I don't. It's like I already know what happened. Like you got to tell me the world. Like it's a little world building here, and this. It just like and everything is like this. This is the tower, and we are fighting the darkness, and you need to go deal with the Cabal and the Fallen and the Vex, and it's just everything is definite article, proper noun, and it's like they're trying to make it feel mythic and legendary, and instead it just comes off as feeling like weird and detached.
Well, yeah, because even if you go back to Halo, Bungie's earlier franchise, like it had levity, funny parts in it, like the aliens screaming and making these little quips. Like there was always these moments where they would provide some peaks and valleys for the game, so it wasn't just kind of this monotone experience. And maybe that's the best way to describe my experience with the first Destiny is it was just monotone.
Yeah, that's a good.
I just felt like there were no peaks and valleys. I felt like there was no great moments. I can't even remember any specific moments from that game.
The only great moments from the early part of Destiny were organic multiplayer moments that happened in like the group quest stuff that would suddenly happen and like things would go crazy about. But in terms of the actual narrative content, no, I couldn't tell you anything really about most of that game is a blur.
I just thought it was forgettable, and it was just seemed like a game that people.
The stuff is way like the Taken King and stuff is way better. It feels like when you're playing stuff like the Taken King, Rise of Iron less so, but definitely the Taken King, like you're like. You tell me these are the people that made Halo, and I believe you.
Bungie had started to figure it out at that point. So let's talk about what we know about the new one. Coming out September 8th. Going to be a beta this summer. Open beta. Everyone's going to be able to play in it. Timed exclusive content for PlayStation 4.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
Not at all, because Activision pretty much is in bed with PlayStation at this point. Big story, PC version.
Yeah.
How big is that, Matt?
I don't know.
I'm wondering, too.
Because I'm still going to get it on PS4, because I don't trust any of my friends to get it on PC.
I don't either, yeah.
It's like, if I get it on PC, I'm sure it'll look good, but I'll be alone.
Playing by yourself, yeah. And this is certainly
it was bad
social.
bad enough when I bought the PS4 version of the first game, and everybody I knew bought the Xbox One version.
Yeah, which is really weird. That hasn't happened with many games this generation.
No, that was early enough that people hadn't really admitted it themselves. That the PS4 version is going to run better, folks.
Yeah.
There's a clear difference here.
Yeah.
Because I was a big 360 fan too. I bought everything on 360, but it's I very rapidly switched to okay, the performance is clearly better on this, because I'm not a brand loyalist. I'm a frame rate loyalist.
Yeah.
It's like
it's funny. I can look at my game collection from last generation and huge collection of Xbox 360 games, and then 2 stacks of PlayStation 3 games.
Yeah, then they're all exclusives.
And they're all exclusives. Yeah. Maybe a couple thrown in there. I think I have BioShock 2 or something.
Yeah. I have Burnout. I have one of the Burnout games. Burnout Paradise I have on PS3 because the spark effects looked better on the PS3.
And now this generation completely flipped.
Yep.
Big library of PlayStation 4 games, not even 2 stacks yet of Xbox One games.
Well, Xbox One, especially at this point, I had to put away an Xbox One game a couple weeks ago, and I opened the case and I'd totally forgotten that the disc is on the other side.
Oh yeah.
It's on the left side now for whatever to be unique. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I was like, and I took, because I had the disc and I opened the thing and I just went like that, and it just fell out. I'm like, what the? Oh, it's on the other. That's how little I deal with Xbox One games.
Yep. And then the final thing, May 18th, they're supposed to show off gameplay for the first time. Do you expect it to look much better, if at all, than the original game?
Yes, I think it will look better. Yeah.
You think they'll shoot for the Scorpio and Pro, or you think they're going to...
I think there will be some Pro benefits. Frankly, I don't care about how it looks nearly as much as how it plays, and that it feels like something that was made this decade.
Yeah.
Because it just, the problem with the original, vanilla Destiny was that it felt like they just took, some good Halo-style gameplay, but then, they just bogged it down with every terrible MMO design idea that even MMOs had left behind.
And I had never been a fan of MMOs. That's why it turned me off so much.
Well, even MMOs weren't doing that stuff anymore. It was like they played It's like they played World of Warcraft in circa 2005, and that was it.
Yeah.
It was it felt like Bungie had never played a game other than their own,
or that in just World of Warcraft.
Sort of, it was almost, but even that didn't work as well as a lot of Warcraft stuff. It was almost like it was an MMO shooter made by people who had once heard of MMOs.
Right, yeah.
And at some point you had to be they're like, oh, they're all upset that people were using the loot caves and stuff. Do you know why they're doing that? Because your loot system sucks.
Right, because it's not fun to do it the way it's supposed to work.
I keep turning in blue engram things, and I haven't gotten a blue item for a week.
Yeah.
Their whole idea of keeping people playing was making the grind interminably awful.
Yeah.
And MMOs haven't. That's EverQuest 1 stuff, man. That's 2002 game design. You got to move on. You got to make the content worth playing over and over again, not just making me hope for a Gallarhorn.
That's really what it came down to ultimately.
And
just hoping for a rare drop.
Yeah, and the subsequent updates have definitely helped that a lot. The grind is still there, but it's shifted in terms of what you're after into more a more tangible and steady progression of powering your character up. Even if it's just through slowly crawling up in the defense number.
Yeah.
But you always feel like you're making some kind of progress, even if it is slow. Whereas too much of vanilla Destiny was, I made no progress tonight because all my stupid blue engrams turned out to be green trash loot.
Yep, and that's why I'm excited about Destiny 2, because even though I haven't played all the expansions for the first game, just from talking to you and just being a part of the industry, I get that Bungie is on the right track. Mm-hmm. And so it's been building this sequel with all those right ideas in mind all along. And so it gives me hope that this vanilla game is going to be probably what I had hoped the first Destiny was going to be.
That said, I am not buying that $250 collector's edition because that bag is hideous.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody's seen the shot of what comes. It comes with this bag which has a solar powered USB charger. I don't know what that's based on, but it looks like someone patched it together out of old scarecrows. Isn't
it crazy
so
how
weird.
Now on the day they announce a game, everything's announced.
Yeah.
Like,
here's all the things you can give us money for.
They put out a trailer for the GameStop exclusive
and the GameStop
figurine you get.
Well, and also the GameStop exclusive version of the game, you get a bunch more stuff you don't get anywhere else.
That trailer comes out the same day they announce the game. They already have the DLC schedule out. They tell you how much it's going to cost, how many. They already said there's two story.
Well,
based
least.
DLC.
Like those are if you buy the deluxe version, certainly the GameStop one, you get the first two included.
Right.
So already the GameStop one is pretty much the best deal.
Yeah.
Which again, which coming on the heels of what we talked about last week about how there's never really any reason to go into GameStop.
Yep.
Now they're trying to give you a reason to go into GameStop. And I will probably get the GameStop version because it is a better deal.
But it's like everything, box art, like everything's there.
Oh, yeah.
And look, there's nothing more infuriating than when you're trying to add a new game to Sifted and you're like looking around trying to find all this stuff that you need to create the game for the site. Destiny was just like, boom, like, here you go, here's everything, which is nice for that kind of stuff, but it's just crazy to see how the industry has changed just really in the last 5 years to where you announce a game, like, it's all out there already. Mm-hmm. Like, maybe you wait for gameplay or whatever, but as far as, like, all the nuts and bolts of what will I pay, what systems is it coming for, what's the key art look like, what's the box, like, all that stuff. You don't want
people
now.
to have questions about that stuff.
Yeah. You shouldn't, but it took the industry way too long to figure that out.
Well, you remember the Deus Ex Mankind Divided original pre-order plan, where like everybody had to pre-order a certain number and you'd unlock more bonuses and eventually they just scrapped the whole thing and said, "No, here, just take everything."
And the game tanked.
Yeah,
I might add. I wouldn't say tanked, but it did not sell up to expectations and may not be coming back. So,
well, now they're making Marvel games. So,
how excited are you for Destiny 2?
I'm pretty excited. I mean, I want to see how it plays. They've talked about kind of the ideas they have, where like they want it to be a more open, more organic game, and less of a load map, go to this map, load to this map, load to this map, sort of broken up thing. Basically, they don't want to give me those load screens with the spaceship where I wonder why I'm playing.
Yeah,
like they want me to just keep going and never think about the fact that it's 3 a.m. And while that's not going to do wonders for my sleep schedule, it is what I want out of Destiny. I want a smoother, I want a more streamlined, I want a more character-driven game. I want something that lives up to the early Halos that Bungie always showed they had the chops to make, and I want that back. And it looks like they seem almost as frustrated with how the original Destiny turned out as we were. So I'm hoping that now that they've kind of got their sea legs on it, they'll be able to deliver what they want to deliver in the first place.
You know how the old saying goes, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. I feel like I was fooled the first time, and so I'm in this position where I'm defensive, and I'm like, oh, if I fall for it again, then that's on me, but I can't help it. Like, I'm really excited for Destiny 2. I feel like what I was expecting in the first game, granted is coming 2 years later, I was really excited for the first Destiny. I'm a big fan of Bungie, big fan of Halo up until Bungie stopped making it. I still like Halo, but I just feel like it lost a little bit of its magic. I feel like, 2 years under the belt, all the DLC that they put out for it, they should have it all figured out by now. I'm really pumped for Destiny 2. This year in games is just incredible. It is. We talked about it a few weeks ago about, maybe topping 1998. To me, it looks like it really might. So hopefully you guys are as excited as we are for Destiny 2, and you guys aren't feeling too burned by the first one. I definitely was salty about the first game for a while. So I think it's taken this whole time for me to finally get over it to where I'm willing to set myself up to get burned again. So
that's what they're counting on.
It is, yeah.
The Activision bread and butter.
Yep, we'll see. So, again, May 18th we'll get the full gameplay reveal, and so I'm pretty sure we'll probably be talking about it again once we get a look at how it plays. But for now, that's really all the information that we have. Beta in the summer, open to everybody, PC version, launches September 8th. So we'll see you in May to talk about it again. Let's move on. We're going to talk about another game that everything had been leaked out.
Yep.
I will say one thing about Sifted, man, is that you may not get everything first. So on NeoGAF, I'm sure there's some stories that some kid found and published them first, but you get everything every day. And it's been really crazy over the last few weeks for people to react to stuff that's happened and be like, oh my gosh, StarCraft remaster. But that story was on Sifted 2 months ago. The rumors started bubbling up about it, and this happens all the time, Like, people will be like, I didn't even know. And it's like, well, if you were on Sifted, you would have known because it was on there 3 weeks ago. This is another case. StarCraft Remaster. What is it? PC, PS4, Xbox One?
Is it? I didn't know there were console versions.
Maybe I just assumed that there would be because
I thought it was just PC.
I think you're right. Okay, so I said earlier.
Chat will know.
So I said earlier, full disclosure, that I had never finished a Kingdom Hearts game. Here is my other full disclosure, which is far more embarrassing. I never played the original StarCraft.
Lord Almighty.
Yep. So it came out in 98, and in 1998, that was when I was running my own fan site, Street Level Gaming, and I was covering N64 and Dreamcast, and I've just only had time to play PC games if it was something I really liked, and during that time, I was just playing Star Siege Tribes, like a maniac. Any free time I had away from what I was doing for the website, or going to Temple full-time, or working a job 35 hours a week, I just didn't have time to play it, and I never played it, man. So how excited... I am really excited about this, obviously, because I know it's probably... I think most people would say the best RTS ever?
Well, I wouldn't, but...
What would you say the best one is?
My favorite RTS ever is Rise of Nations.
Rise of Nations? Wow. Well, that's also a great pick.
And I also like the Dawn of War games a lot.
Yeah.
I did play through StarCraft and Brood Wars, the campaigns back in the day. I'm not an RTS multiplayer person, so again, I'm probably not the best person to ask about the best RTS games of all time, because I play either campaign or I play like the conquer the map mode, like against the computer. I for whatever reason, most multiplayer things I can hold my own. I don't have the brain or the mind somehow to keep up with RTS strategies.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I just don't like how like so many of the strategies break how things are supposed to work. And, like that whole place all your power things in the lane so the enemies can. Like that's not where you put your generators in real life. That doesn't make any. You don't put them in front of the enemies. So like I never got into the multiplayer thing, but I did finish the campaigns for the original StarCraft, and I like that a lot. I like the campaigns in the StarCraft 2. I
played StarCraft 2.
I haven't played.
I did not play the first one though.
I haven't played the second and third StarCraft 2. I played the original one.
Yeah.
I like that a lot too. So I'm kind of excited to maybe dabble in it again and play the campaign a little bit and make see it look nice again, because those are always a lot of fun to look at. Back in the day, they were very pretty for their time, and the animation had a lot of character to it, and Blizzard has always been great at that. And it's cool that I was just actually thinking when I saw like the story, the rumor pop up on Sifted however many weeks or months ago. I was like, I wonder where my StarCraft discs are, because I'm like, maybe I have to.
And will they work?
Where is it? I don't know. I have no idea where that. I mean, it's probably in a binder back in a closet somewhere.
Right.
But now it's like, I guess I don't need.
You don't need
my
to,
Star Trek,
yeah.
because like not only that, but you're going to be able to get the vanilla unremastered versions for free.
Right. Yeah.
Which is a nice thing for Blizzard to do.
I honestly think this may end up be one of the best-selling games of the year on PC.
It could be, yeah.
I mean, it's that big. I mean, didn't this really start esports?
I think that's definitely a fair claim, I think.
I mean, this is the game, really.
Certainly in South Korea, it was the thing that blew the whole competitive gaming up, and I think
and it's coming with all
of that spins out of that.
Basically. And it's coming with all that stuff, all the tournament stuff and online play and LAN play, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have that base, that core. Obviously, if a game, I mean, it lasted for 14 or 15 years in Korea is like the top most played game.
Yeah, it took League of Legends to knock it out.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at that, it's just like, if it can sustain intense competition between the best players in the world for that long, you just know the core is just rock solid. And there's a whole generation of players out there who have never discovered this and don't know, really, a lot of them, maybe anything about it.
The whole generation is probably, it's like putting on comfortable shoes again.
Yeah.
It's nice to get back into that groove of a game that you played forever and haven't touched in a while.
And now it's going to run like a beast and have modern netcode and all that.
I think it's a really smart thing. It's a really good thing for people who love the original game and wanted to play. Because it doesn't upscale too well. And he wants because I did play it
because the art is what it is.
Right.
It's like
that's
the art was created at a certain resolution.
In the pre-polygon days, the art was the art. That
whatever you
text
drew,
file is only so big.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about how much has changed. But I'm excited about this as someone who's never played it. I can't wait to see what it's all about and to make it easy. It's not like I have to find some, I don't know if my computer would run the original StarCraft at this point. Would it?
It probably would.
Yeah?
I mean, it just wouldn't look very good.
Yeah. It's like you start thinking about it. You're like, one, will it run? Two, you got
to tweak stuff. Like generally, you can usually find a compatibility mode for just about any old game. It's a great remaster. We saw this, and there was another '90s era PC remaster that was finally shown, Outcast.
That was actually almost our trailer of the week, but it was actually swapped out this morning for something
earliest
else.
voxel games, one of the earliest full open world science fiction game from 1999 that almost nobody played, and.
I'll tell you why I know, because that was the first year I worked at GameSpot, and Greg Kasavin fought like tooth and nail for that game to win anything it could. And it won, I think, Action Adventure of the Year
that's
that
fair.
year.
It's great. It's great. It had a really unique style. It had kind of a French comic book thing. I love that kind of. I'm also looking for like the Fifth Element kind of thing.
Yeah.
And also, I think I bring Mobius up a lot on the show when I talk about my favorite games. Because he influences a lot of stuff, and then we've got Valerian in the City of a Thousand Planets coming, which is based on the comic books that the French comic that Luc Besson stole from to make Fifth Element.
Yeah.
But the designer for Fifth Element is the guy who made that comic, and now he's making the design for this with Luc Besson. I mean,
the circle is complete.
But Outcast has that kind of same look to it, and it's really cool that these companies are starting to look back at
that remaster is extreme.
It is.
I was like, whoa.
I mean, that's like it's
a different game.
Go look at that footage on Sifted, because it's like the old game. It looked cool for the time, but it was one of those things where you look at like the polygon model of the alien. I'm like, I get you're supposed to be an alien, but I have no idea what you actually look like.
Yeah.
Because it's just pieces.
Well, it
hanging
was
off things.
late '90s polygonal
1999
graphics.
is the best you could do.
That's the way it was.
It was it's like between that and Ultima Ascension, those were pretty much the only games in town that were trying to do that.
On your Voodoo 2 card.
And Outcast was way better at it than Ultima Ascension was, if I'm being honest. But I think that era is an unmined territory, and it's nice to see Blizzard kind of leading the charge and bringing back one of the greats of 1997.
Pro show. And I just admitted one of my guiltiest things in all of gaming for me is that I've never played StarCraft.
Yeah, you can fix that.
Finally got it off my chest.
You
So
can fix that now.
All right, let's move along. We're going to talk.
I think you'll like that better than Kingdom Hearts 1.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna bet that the gameplay of StarCraft has aged
Probably
a little better.
so, yeah. All right, let's move along. We're going to talk next about the Video Game Hall of Fame that neither one of us have ever been inducted to and probably never will be.
No.
But
I did attend the first ceremony of it, though.
yeah. I remember that was a big deal.
Adam hosted it.
Yep. And now it's just become kind of blasé. Like,
Yeah, it was,
they put out their press. They still get
like
international
anything that
pickup.
happens at the Metreon, really.
Yeah. They still get mainstream pickup. Like, this story was picked up by CNN and all the big newspapers and everything. So they announced 12 new nominees for games to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. There's only 7 in there right now.
Yeah, they move slow.
Yeah, so that's a lot of I question why they do this, because it's like once you announce this many nominees, aren't you kind of announcing the nominees for the next, 5 years or something?
Sort of, but they just want people to say, I like that game. And pay attention.
I understand the social media element of it and all that type of stuff. But anyway, here are the 12 nominees.
Because they didn't used to do that. Back in the original first few years, it was just like, they're like, oh, we're inducting this game.
There wasn't even nominees.
There weren't nominees.
And it does make sense. You want people to talk about it. You want to put up that article on Facebook and have 5,000 replies of people arguing over which game should make it in, which is exactly what Matt and I are about to do. But anyway, here are the nominees. Donkey Kong Country. I was surprised to see that be a nominee. I mean, considering there's only 7 games in so far.
I thought it was just Donkey Kong.
No, it was Donkey Kong Country.
They used the picture was like the little handheld Donkey Kong game.
I don't know. I mean, I think I got this list from the New York Times.
Somebody made a mistake then, because in the picture, because it shows all the boxes of the games and stuff. It's the old 1982
Well, maybe the article I got this from
handheld
had it wrong,
thing.
But it would be weird for them to add country onto it, don't you think?
It would, but remember some of the people in their 20s writing those articles now
they weren't alive.
Might not know there was a Donkey Kong
Right.
without a
Absolutely
country
right.
on it.
You're right. So it's either Donkey Kong or Donkey Kong Country.
I'm like 98% sure it's Donkey Kong.
I thought Donkey Kong was already in.
No.
No?
No.
Well, then it should be nominated.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy VII, Halo Combat Evolved, the first Halo, Microsoft Solitaire, which I guess I can kind of get it.
An important part of everyone's life, I think.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
An important part of wasting time at work for
Yes.
everybody. Mortal Kombat, the original Mortal Kombat, Myst, Pokemon Red and Green, the first Resident Evil, Portal, Street Fighter II, Tomb Raider, and Wii Sports.
That's a lineup.
Is Wii Sports the most recent game? I think it is. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
No. Portal is.
Portal, was that before?
Portal was 2007, wasn't it? And Wii Sports would have been 2006.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, Portal would be the latest. Okay, so what we're going to do is Matt and I are both going to pick 2 games that we think from these 12 should make it into the Hall of Fame. We're going to provide one runner-up, and then we're going to pick our favorite from all the games on this list. So, Matt, you go first with your runner-up.
My runner-up is Pokemon Red and Green.
It's a good pick.
Which, again, like so many of the games on this list, it should already be in there. But it's like, of these, it's just like, it's still so relevant. It's influenced so many things. It changed a whole generation, and there's a whole generation that not only identified with it as kids, but rediscovered it in college. That's one of the stories that if you were 8 years old in 1998, you will tell the story of how like you stopped playing Pokemon in your high school because it wasn't cool to play Pokemon in high school.
Right.
And as soon as you got to that dorm room in college, it was just like everybody brought their Game Boy and it was Pokemon time again. And Pokemon Go, Pokemon Go was still a phenomenon in large part because of I think that
that generation of people now they have smartphones. Yeah, for sure.
And it just it's no signs of stopping. I think Pokemon has carved out a niche in the gaming world that is comparable to something like Mario or Zelda, like Nintendo's greats of all time. Which is something that I think at the time people were skeptical of. Like, even though it had sold incredibly well in Japan, there was that it took 2 years to come here, and everyone was like, I don't know if it's gonna really translate to American. It's like it's gonna translate just fine.
Yeah.
It's a tried and true thing, and
although Yokai Watch really hasn't.
No, but Yokai Watch doesn't play as well.
Yeah, you're right.
Like,
it's not as good a game. Yeah.
No, and it's also I think they limit the monster designs to kind of a yokai like sensibility, and whereas Pokemon could be anything.
No, you're right.
Pokemon could be a trash bag with a face on it.
Yeah, some of them are.
That's like literally what a couple of them are. And it's just such an important game and such a successful game and such a meaningful game to so many people. Like it's got to be in there.
All right. So the way I approached this whole thing was, I'm like, man, there's 12 games. It's a lot to consider. It made it very easy for me to just look at it this way: which games either created a new genre or just had the biggest trickle down and the most imitators, which would, 1, denote it has legs, and 2, denote that it was a great idea to begin with because it was popular out of the gate enough that other people imitated it. So my runner-up is Resident Evil, the first Resident Evil. It has spawned, it wouldn't say it spawned a genre, it certainly spawned a subgenre.
Yeah, well, the genre existed already because of Alone in the Dark.
Yeah, I guess you're right, but it made it popular. It popularized it. I think if Alone in the Dark had been the only survival horror game that came out, the explosion never would have happened.
Oh, yeah, I mean, Resident Evil codified it.
Right.
But, it
Alone
did
in
it
the
better.
Dark. Alone in the Dark had the right idea, but flawed execution.
Alone in the Dark was also, like so many things in this industry, a little too soon.
Yeah.
Because the tech wasn't there to present what they were trying to present properly. And that happens a lot it's not, in the game industry, it's not usually very helpful to be first.
No.
And usually it helps more to wait
in a lot of
until the tech's
industries,
ready.
really.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's the story of Sega. I mean, Sega had online gaming in 1991.
Right.
And did anyone care? Did anyone remember it? No, the infrastructure wasn't there.
They thought they were crazy.
Is not ready. But you look back at what they were doing there, and it's basically the virtual console.
It really is.
And but it was just too soon. And Alone in the Dark has always struck me in the same way. Is like they were trying to do this thing that just Capcom saw with the PlayStation 1. Like, we can make it work better.
It also just wasn't as good.
Right. Well, also Alone in the Dark was drawing on Lovecraftian stuff, and Resident Evil went for schlock B-movie horror, which is just a much more universal, appealing idea to most people.
I mean, also, Capcom was smart enough to realize that using pre-rendered CG movies was vitally important to creating tone and atmosphere in a game like this and telling a coherent story when the real-time graphics weren't up to the job of doing it.
Always important to start with terrible live-action cinemas, like every game back then.
Yeah,
that's what CDs were for.
Yeah, pretty much. And, they did CG stuff for this. It set a lot of precedents that are still trickling down. Survival horror is still one of the biggest genres in the industry, and so I started.
It's changed a lot, but it's still,
but it's still one
of the key genres of the indie game explosion.
Indie and VR both.
Yeah.
They make up like probably 50% of all the releases for those two platforms. I don't know if platform is the right way to say indie, but I started looking through all the other games on these lists, and almost all of them were like Me Too games, or just like the fifth iteration on an idea. Final Fantasy VII, Halo. I mean, Halo. I have no idea why it would even be a nominee other than just the fact that it made console first-person shooters bigger than they had been before.
Yeah, I mean, Halo is kind of what opened the doors to the mainstream audience coming in and doing. I mean, GoldenEye already sort of had proven you could do that on a console. Halo kind of brought it to the next level, and then Halo 2, of course, with the online stuff. I think Halo 2 might almost be more important in that regard.
Mortal Kombat, I mean, it certainly didn't start a genre, but it did sort of start the discussion on M-rated games.
Right.
And pushing the boundaries of content.
It was the teenager of video gaming. It was the one that got us in trouble.
Yeah. I think my next closest pick actually was Myst.
Yeah, Myst.
But the reason I passed on Myst was because the genre has kind of disappeared.
Yeah,
I wouldn't call it irrelevant. Like,
I'd say it's
Thimbleweed
bad.
Park went out.
Right.
Yesterday, the reviews went out yesterday. Huge reviews for that.
I think that the adventure genre has come back in the last 5 or so. Again, partly in part to Telltale.
And Kickstarter.
Come back in a big way, but it was dead for
a long time.
Over 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it was no question that there's a breaking continuity there that Resident Evil does not have.
Yeah.
Or survival horror does not have, that I think. Myst. I mean, maybe next year. That would be my thing for Myst. Like, eventually, Myst should be in there.
I mean, there's so many things that Resident Evil was kind of the first at. Like, really the first zombie game. Like, there's just lots of little things that it did that ended up shaping how games would be made for a long time to come. And so that was why it was my pick. And now, for our winning pick, if we both had one vote to put a game into the Hall of Fame, Matt and I actually ended up picking the same exact game. And that game is, you want to say it together?
Yeah.
Street Fighter 2. Yeah. Guys our age, there's no way we're picking anything else. There's just no way.
And again, there was kind of a break in the genre for a while, although they were still made, just no one cared.
Yeah.
And it should also be noted, I mean, look, you can't, as someone who grew up in the arcades, you can't oversell how much this game changed that scene.
Everything.
Because it was dead.
Oh,
it was
man.
Like, you'd go to sad little arcades in like the back of 7-Elevens to play like Raiden, and
or maybe playing at laundromats.
Yeah, just like that.
Gas
like
stations.
Some ancient Mr. Do machine that just like no one.
Pizza Hut by the men's room door.
Like, oh well, yeah, we'll go to the pizza place that still has the road blasters with one button that works. Kind of thing. And then Street Fighter 2 hit, and arcades were it again
for a long time.
For years.
I mean, when I was in college, still the game had been out for years and years. And at my breaks, I went to the little mini arcade at the student union and put my quarters up until I ran out of time. And there was 10 or 15 people in line waiting to put their quarters up. Like,
I went to college. Started in fall '94, which was 3 years after Street Fighter 2 hit. And I remember the first week I was there, this guy down the hall leans out and goes, "We're playing Street Fighter on Super Nintendo down here. I know there's nerds in here. Get in here. We're gonna bond over some Street Fighter." And I fucking went. Yeah. And I did. I played Mortal Kombat 2 and Super Street Fighter Turbo on the Super Nintendo, and that's how I got to know my first people in college.
Yeah. But I mean, look, there were fighting games before Street Fighter 2.
Street Fighter 1.
Yeah.
Nobody cared.
Right,
about.
But they were all terrible.
Right.
I wouldn't say terrible. Like
Karate Champ was okay. Yar Kung Fu had its moments, but like Street
I was
Fighter
the Yar
2,
Kung Fu guy. I played that.
Yeah.
It was Karate Champ. Like, that game is so bad.
Yeah.
Like, it's so bad.
Especially in the arcade where it was controlled with 2 joysticks.
Yeah, it was like, it was like the most like...
Well, did you ever play the Street Fighter 1 version with the pneumatic button?
No,
So there was 2 versions of Street Fighter 1. There was the one where you had the 6-button layout that everybody knows about. And I do remember as a kid staring at that and just like, jab, forward, fear. What is it all that? But there was another version of the arcade I used to go to briefly had, where it was just 2 giant buttons. It was a punch and kick, and they had like a pneumatic system where the harder you pressed it, the harder it's still the 3 different power levels, but you had to push it harder
to get
the harder level.
Interesting.
And the problem was the air bladder or whatever that like caused it would pop and wear out, and so like it was only there for like a couple weeks or something, and one of the kids who was playing got mad and punched the thing and broke it.
Yeah.
And so the arcade owner like actually returned it and got the 6-button one to replace it. And still, nobody really played it because it was so hard, and like people forget, like no one plays Street Fighter 1 nostalgically anymore except probably some real specific people, because like it was terrible.
It's not good.
It was not good. You can only play as Ken and Ryu multiplayer. It was not, Street Fighter 2, you forget, was kind of an accident in some ways. Like the combos were a glitch. They didn't intend it to be that. Yep. And it just,
they're like, wait a minute.
It found it, and you forget like how much was the community, like rumors from different arcades about how Chun-Li can throw her bracelets and Guile can put you in handcuffs and all like all that stuff. It was great.
It really was. And there was a culture around it.
And all the way up until probably almost 2000, people were you don't think about it now because they don't do it this way, but like if you're going to make like a shovelware, quick and dirty, let's get a game on the shelf, you're going to make a shitty fighting game.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's legions of them.
Yep.
Just on the N64 alone.
Oh, yeah. Clay Fighter 63 and a third.
Bio-Freaks.
Bio-Freaks, that's right. Yeah. I forgot about that one.
Mace the Dark Age.
That's
like
right,
just all those terrible 3D fighting games. But it was a phenomenon. It all comes from Street Fighter 2.
Oh, for sure. I mean, honestly, if somebody said, hey, we're going to put you on a desert island and you can play one fighting game for the rest of your life, I think I would still make it Street Fighter 2.
I might ask for the Champion Edition.
Yeah.
But yeah.
With as many characters as possible.
Right.
But that style of play, that is what I would choose. I still love playing Street Fighter 2 all these years later. It has aged remarkably well.
I can still play that all night against them.
Yeah, it's still very well balanced. I mean, obviously as iterations came and they balanced it a little better, I mean, I would prefer to have that than the first version they sent out to arcades, but it stands the test of time. It's still and it's one of those games that everybody knows. Like everybody knows what Street Fighter is. Like if you have a conversation about games and someone who's our age will be like, "Oh, I used to play Street Fighter in the arcades way back," blah blah blah, and yeah, it's just an icon, and it always will be. And if that is not one of the games that gets inducted into the Hall of Fame, there's going to be riots.
Yep. Street riots.
Street riots.
Fighting in the
We're
street.
We're going to roll barrels at them.
Yes. And we're going to beat their car
up their cars with our fists.
But no, it's you can't get better than that. And I also give Street Fighter credit for the comeback in 2008 when all of a sudden Street Fighter 4 brought it all back home, and now fighting games are a thing again.
And now it's starting to go back down.
Right.
Street Fighter 5 has been a pretty monumental failure. So.
But I think the community is still there, and Marvel 4 will reinvigorate some of it. It's just for a long time the fighting game community scene was basically dedicated people playing in ballrooms they rented and homes and arcades when they could find them. And Street Fighter 4 once again revolutionized how that media is consumed. And now you've got them on the floor of Mandalay Bay playing for the championship at EVO on ESPN 2.
That's pretty crazy.
And that's all Street Fighter.
It really is. It all started there. Yeah. Hall of Fame. Hall of Fame. It better win. All right, let's move on to our last topic of the episode. I'm going to talk about Persona 5, and I have to admit that I have not played this as much as I had hoped I was going to play it before I came to record GameFace episode 81 today. I had hoped I would have at least 10 to 12 hours in the game. I have not got there. I am about 3 or 4 hours into it so far. The embargo is up already. I didn't get it until later than GameSpot and IGN and some of the other guys. I got it with the second round of codes that went out. And it comes out the 4th, which is next week. Based upon what I've read about this, I'm not going to have it done for embargo. I thought Mass Effect was a big game. Apparently, this game is like 100 hours, like, period, to finish.
Oh, the Persona games are no joke.
Yeah. So I have literally, like, if Persona 5 was a soda, like, I just popped the top of it and a drop flew out and landed on the table. That's about how much of it I've consumed at this point. But I have kind of got the lay of the land. I've played enough to kind of see how everything works and the graphics and how they work. The first thing I would say is, like, the stuff that you're seeing here, this is like how the game is. I think every single review that's come out for it so far is stylish, is in the, like, subtitle for the review. Persona 5 review, blah, 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 stylish, blah, 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 how, whatever. And that's right. It is an incredibly stylish game. It's almost like if epilepsy had sex with a video game. It's, like, the best way to describe it. Like, because there's just constant, like, graphical overlays and cut-ins and split screens and things happen really fast in a flash and then they're gone. Like, it's an ADD JRPG is probably a good way to describe it. Let's see. I guess the best thing I could do is kind of set up the plot. So basically, you're this young teenager who's walking down the street at night one night, and you see this woman getting accosted by this dude. I wouldn't know if I would say he's trying to rape her, but it's a rapey situation, I guess is the best way to put it. You step in and you stand up for her. It turns out the guy is a big government official or whatever, and he ends up suing you. You end up going to court and losing and going to jail. And basically what happens is you get sent away to live with this person, which they never, at least from what I've played so far, they never really explain who the guy is, like if he's the uncle or whatever. He's just this dude that owns like a restaurant, and you move in with him for a year's time because you got in trouble back at home or whatever. So he bunks you up in this crappy room in the back of his restaurant or whatever, and your adventure essentially begins. One thing I would say is that the graphics engine used for this game is really bad. Like, they do a really good job of covering up the fact that this engine, I mean, the engine really, if you look at it from a technical perspective, how many polygons it's pushing, the effects that it's firing off, it is literally like last gen. And I'm not even exaggerating. But Atlas does a great job of spicing it up with the art style and all the anime overlays and the presentation. So when you play it, you don't really notice. Like, it's when you stop and you just kind of sit and like look at like the character models and the way the rooms are modeled and everything. It's very simple geometry, but they do a great job of spicing it up with a lot of kind of the special effects that they throw into it. This, by the way, is the very beginning of the game. We've shown this gameplay before. This is the first thing that you do when you start playing, and as you can see, there's like platforming in it, but it's all automatic. It's not like you can actually miss a jump and like fall off and die or anything like that, which makes me wonder why they even make you press a button for it at all. But combat, I've been playing for a handful of hours. I haven't even really gotten that many fights. There is a lot of exposition in this game.
Yeah, I recall Persona 4 is like, basically, Persona 4's beginning is about 6 hours long.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the way this is. It's just like one cinema after another. Like, you go through this, at the end of this kind of little gameplay section, you go through this whole scene in the police station. For
whatever reason, though, I think one of the real appeals of the Persona games, certainly at least 3 onward, has been the fact that they will like capture the mundanity of day-to-day existence.
They do.
Mixed in with this crazy demon stuff that's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really got to the crazy demon stuff, other than like these battles, these early battles that you have with demon-like creatures. Like, they haven't really got into the whole Persona part of the game yet, so to speak. I'm still really kind of in the tutorial for the game, which is crazy that I've been playing it for so long, and they're still teaching me how to play it. One thing I would say, the writing in this game is not good at all. I mean, it's just overly wordy. I feel like basically what happened was they recorded the cutscenes in Japanese, and then they were like, okay, we have to fill this much time, and each character has to have X number of lines. So it's like, in the Japanese version, the cop said something 5 times. The lead character said something 4 times. We need to figure out how to fill in all those lines with dialogue. So what you end up getting is a lot of just pointless banter back and forth that really has nothing to do with anything. And look, a game this big, I understand translating it is a huge, monumental job, but I think this might be one of those cases where it might be better to play it in Japanese. And I think it does actually have the Japanese voice acting.
Yeah, that's pretty standard these days for Atlas.
I've been playing it in English, and it's not good, a lot of it.
I'll probably play it in Japanese because otherwise my girlfriend will yell at me.
Does she understand Japanese?
No, but she prefers not to hear the bad English voice acting.
And it is pretty bad. I will say one thing, the whole thing is voiced. Like, there's very little reading. Like, pretty much every little line that you could read is voiced by somebody. So they have done a ton of work. I mean, that's one thing, I would say is it better to get something voiced and have it not be good and just use text?
It depends. I mean, as long as if I want to, I can jump through the text and skip the voice.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it.
I mean,
I
honestly,
generally don't do that, but it's nice to have the option to just sort of, if I'm tired of listening to you, I can just jump through and get to the fight.
I found myself jumping through a lot of dialogue in this because I can read pretty quick, and so I just see it long enough to read it.
That's why I turn off subtitles, because otherwise I'm 2 lines ahead of everybody, and I'm just waiting for you to talk, and that's no fun.
Yeah, and I literally am just like flip, 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 flip. That's the speed that I'm like going through, because it's like
I was doing that with Nier Automata.
Yeah,
Automata or whatever. But they do that too. They a lot of the lines are voiced with the text box coming up. And I'm just like, no, finish the text box. We gotta move. We gotta go.
Yeah.
I mean, I probably will try to not do that with Persona 5 because I do find Persona 5's premise more engaging. But I think it does help to use the Japanese voice acting, because when you don't understand what someone is saying in your head and then you read the subtitle, you can kind of make it sound good in your head.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Back when I used to do interviews with a lot of Japanese developers, every time I'd finish an interview, and they always have a translator, they're translating it or whatever, a lot of times when I'd finish an interview, the translator or the PR person for the company would be like, "You understand Japanese?" And I'd be like, I understand like 10 words of Japanese. And they're like, "But you're reacting the whole time exactly how you should have been." Like, when he would say something profound, you would, like, cock your eyebrow. And he's like, "I could have swore that you were fluent in Japanese." I'm like, I didn't understand a word he said.
But I do know what tone is.
Arigato gozaimasu. Like, and so it is funny. Like, you can still kind of pick up on inflection clues and things like that, even if you don't quite understand the language. I think I'm going to stick with English because I am evaluating the game, and I kind of need to know exactly what's going on.
I did something like that once where I was in France, and this woman asked me something in French, and I don't speak much French. I can read it because I understand a lot of Spanish, but I don't know how it's pronounced.
Yeah.
Because French doesn't pronounce half the damn consonants.
Right.
But I knew what she asked me had to be, because of tone inflection and the nature of the conversation, do you speak French?
Yeah.
And I said no, and she's like, "Well, then how did you know what I said?" I'm like, "What else would you say?" And she got really mad that I understood what she said, but I didn't understand French, but I just said no to her, and for whatever reason, that really bothered her.
I could actually kind of understand that. That's pretty funny. So I'm going to play it in English. And it is fast. Like, you don't have to sit there and listen to every line that they read. You can skip through it, and like it's only like a sentence, so you can read it very quickly just to get in a flash of it. So it's not that big a deal. The script is overly wordy, and there's tons and tons of lines that really accomplish little to nothing. But it's not that much of a hindrance. You cannot share media in this game.
Yeah, I read that.
The share button is completely disabled.
It's true of the Japanese version as well.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. But it doesn't work in this game, and I've discovered why. It's because Atlas is afraid, and it will definitely happen anyway, that people are just going to record all the anime scenes and just splice them together into a movie. Because they're amazing. The anime in this is really, really freaking good and really interesting. And I've been paying attention just to the anime cutscenes to see if they alone tell a coherent story, and sure enough, they do. So eventually it's going to happen. Someone's going to record the whole game. They're just going to clip together all the anime cutscenes.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's called an Elgato.
Right. And essentially, you're going to have this awesome anime film that probably, if you think about it, Atlas probably spent the same amount of money to have these cutscenes made by a studio as if you had commissioned that studio to make a feature-length film. It may even be more.
For the size of the game, it's they probably add up to about feature length.
Oh, I'm guessing more. Like, I feel like already in the first handful of hours, I've seen probably an hour of anime. Like, it is, and again, it's the beginning of the game, so, it's story-heavy. They're introducing a lot of characters, a lot of settings, a lot of situations and things like that, so it's probably a little heavier right now than it would be later on. But I've already seen like an hour of anime, and great anime. I've been really impressed with it. In fact, despite its technical shortcomings, the presentation in this game, I absolutely love it. It is really freaking cool. Like, they chose a style, they put their stake in the ground, and they totally stuck to it.
My girlfriend is harassing me via text saying that she is partly fluent.
Okay.
And that's
so she's watching the show right now.
That's why she prefers me to play in Japanese, because she wants to hear the Japanese and not the terrible English voices.
Fair enough.
The point is that nobody wants to hear the English voices, one way or the other.
Yeah.
But I was just compelled to set the record straight on that one.
Yep. Gameplay, like I said, I haven't got deep into the gameplay systems yet, but just aesthetically, very, very satisfying. Even like your base attacks feel so good to pull off. The animation for them, incredible. Again, the art style stays consistent all the way across. I guess the best way I could describe Persona 5 as a whole is you could tell that it was just a passion project for whoever worked on it. Like, it's like a boutique video game. It's another way I would probably describe it. You can just see that, one, the people who worked on it were very close, and they all had a unified vision. And two, whoever the director was never let them stray from that, and just kind of stuck the landing and stood there for however long the game lasts. I'm having fun with it. I'm thinking about going back to it right now. That's always a sign of a game that's good, is when you're away from it, and it's got that thing in the back of your mind saying you want to go play, And
it looks like one of your high picks for the fantasy draft finally paid off.
Might finally actually deliver, yeah. It's too late now, but yeah, again, just based on the first handful of hours of this, looking at the reviews that are out there, so far what I've played, I see no issue with them. Maybe someday Atlas will get a modern graphics engine. I couldn't imagine what they would do, but I mean,
Is this also on PS3, right?
Yeah, it is.
So.
And I didn't get the PS3 version. I only got the PS4, so I don't know how it looks compared to PS4. But
the PS3 version coming out here?
I don't think it is, actually.
It's just PS4,
I think they're only putting out the PS4 here.
Probably smart.
PS3 came out in Japan, obviously, but not here. But, there's so much flash and pizzazz. I love that word. In this game that you'll never really notice its technical shortcomings. It's just me as a journalist. It's just one of those things that you do, And the other thing that's interesting, too, is, it's a turn-based JRPG, but you can run freely through the environments. There's, like, a cover system and, like, all these strange, like, context-sensitive, like, actions you can take. I mean, it's unique. There's really no other game like it. I guess is another good way to describe it, is that it's a completely different experience from anything other than maybe Persona 4. But even it doesn't have the panache that this game has. I'm really enjoying it. I wish I could have...
Persona 4 definitely has a visual style, but doesn't have anything on the level of what you see from this.
Yeah, exactly. And this red and black aesthetic, all of it, the fonts and all this stuff, it carries through for the whole game. They stick it, without a doubt, and stick to it. So, very auspicious beginning to the game for me. Based upon what I played so far, the reviews seem to be fine. They don't seem to be straying outside of what I've experienced playing it. I wish I could have had the game eval for this done for Tuesday. I'm going to do everything I can. I'm probably going to play it all frickin' weekend. So, probably on Tuesday at the very least. Maybe I deliver like a pre-review, because by then I'll probably be 30 hours deep. Maybe I'll deliver impressions for you guys, or maybe do like a hangout or something, and maybe deliver some of my opinions on the game then. So kind of look out on the site for something like that. I'm not going to just let it come to release without giving you guys more opinion than I've given you on this show, because I don't feel like what I've given you today is adequate for you to help decide whether you want to buy the game or not. So look out for me looking out for you in the next few days to deliver more impressions before GameFace. And then next week's GameFace, the floodgates will be open, and hopefully by then you'll have been playing a little bit of it.
Mine should be here on Tuesday.
Okay.
You got an ETA on the Mass Effect eval?
It went up.
Did it?
Yeah, it went up.
I haven't looked today.
Oh, yeah. No, it went up like 2 days ago or 3 days ago.
I didn't see it.
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and
We
look.
did a lot of coverage of Andromeda.
I saw the hangout, but I didn't see...
We did a lot of coverage. We did...
Crap. What's the boss battle?
Bad Dudes.
Bad Dudes.
Yes, we did a bunch of coverage of Andromeda. We did a multiplayer hangout. Then we did a campaign hangout. Then we put up the eval, and then we did Bad Dudes. So it probably just all got lost in the shuffle, but we put up the eval several days ago. So it's up there if you want to take a peek. Let's see. That's it for today's show, other than our trailer of the week. And like I said earlier, I had one trailer that was supposed to be the trailer of the week, and then this morning it was all changed because a brand new game was announced. Total War Warhammer 2 was announced today. And I know you may be like, oh, why is that trailer of the week? Because their debut trailers are freaking amazing. I remember that was one of the first ever trailers of the week on GameFace way back in the day.
In fact, when I saw this at first early this morning, I thought it was an early April Fool's joke.
Yeah. There are April Fool's jokes rolling out there. Like Final Fantasy XIV did like an 8 or 16-bit like version of it, and World of Tanks did a trailer where it's like World of Tanks on Mars or something like that. So, yeah, just a word of caution. The gaming industry loves April Fool's Day jokes. So there's going to be weird stuff floating out. I mean, it's not even April Fool's. That's tomorrow.
No.
There's going to be weird stuff floating out there. Don't believe everything you see.
And don't forget, one of the best April Fool's jokes of all time, Street Fighter 2.
That's right. There you go. Perfect timing. So don't believe everything you see for the next 24 to 48 hours. Like, if you see something and you're like, what? It's probably an April Fool's joke. This, however, is not. This is the debut trailer for Total War Warhammer 2. Get those questions in. How about that?
Yeah.
Cash me out.
I mean, I only just got Total War Warhammer 1. So.
Yeah. I got a review code for the first one, and man, I got like 3 or 4 hours into it, and I was just overwhelmed. Those games are insane.
Oh, Total War games are like that's one of the series I think would be one of the series I'd like to get into, but I just don't have the time, patience, or skill.
It's like they put out trailers for the first one still for like DLC. It's like they're speaking another language. Like I don't even know what the hell we're trying to figure out like the blurb, and you're like, what the hell does this mean? I have no idea.
I understand stuff. I mean, all my working Warhammer.
You have to understand Warhammer really well.
All my working Warhammer 40,000 knowledge basically comes from Dawn of War.
Yeah.
The Dawn of War games.
Yeah.
Although this week, the Humble Bundle, one of the Humble book bundles, is the entire Horus Heresy cycle. All the it's like 15, 16 books. Warhammer 40K books, all about like the lore and the story behind.
I never
all
had
this
any
stuff.
idea there were that many books. Period.
The what's called the fluff, like it's endless.
Really?
Like the lore and the backstory on Warhammer 40K is fascinating. Like it just goes on and on.
Is it good?
Yeah.
And people keep reading it though.
I read synopses. I haven't read any of the books. I read like the wiki and stuff and all the synopses of all the different like all the different like units and races and wars they've had, and it's. I think it's. I don't have any interest in the miniatures game at all because I just don't. They cost too much, and I don't want to paint the little faces.
Yeah.
But like I find like the backstory stuff fascinating in a really like cheesy like way. I feel like it might be meant to be satire to some degree, but nobody takes it as that anymore because it's like so grimdark. That's where grimdark comes from.
Yeah.
The term grim is like in the far future was in the grim darkness of the far future there is only war, and it's fun. It's stupid.
It doesn't sound fun.
It's fun.
That's the last word.
Maybe I had to grow up with Vampire the Masquerade. I don't know,
Yeah.
but I think it's really interesting.
Someone wants you to answer kind of the question that I answered already during this show is, what game did you never get around to? This is from Erebus Jones. What game did you never get around to that you regret now?
There aren't really too many games I haven't gotten around to. I think one of the ones that I didn't play until very recently that I wish I'd played earlier would probably be Earthbound.
Oh, wow.
Which I didn't play until probably 2011 or so.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are guilty of that, though. That's a pretty common.
Yeah, I mean, it bothers me partly because the video store I worked in the summer of 1995 had a full boxed copy of it for like $20. Like they were clearing out their 16-bit stuff, and Earthbound in the box with the tall box with the strategy guide or whatever it came with. It was like $20, and for my employee discount, I could have gotten it for like $15. And I just never did it.
Yeah.
And like now it's like $300 to get a copy of that game,
Yeah.
And I feel like if I just wasn't interested in the cover, I wasn't paying attention to what it is or whatever. And I just feel like if I'd played it back then, I would have loved it then as well. And like, I just feel like I missed so many years of being an Earthbound fan.
Well, yeah. I think as you get older, you're a little more sensitive to things like that. Like when you're younger, you kind of have built up in your mind what you like and you don't like. It's like, I remember when I was a kid, people would be like, well, what do you like? And I could tell them right away what I liked. Mm-hmm. I like the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I like Mario, and like I had a list of things I was ready to rattle off. And it's like anything that isn't that, you're like, well, screw that. I don't even care. And so I could see where like you look at the Earthbound box, and you're like, what is this stuff? Mm-hmm. This doesn't look like Final Fantasy or whatever you were into at the time. When you get older, that changes. You get tired of the stuff that you used to like, and you're always looking for new stuff to like, and I think it makes your mind a little more open to new possibilities. So, better late than never, I like to say. Whereas Ryan Stevens likes to say, better late than pregnant. Danny Endurance, have y'all played Snake Pass yet? I have not.
I have not.
There you go. That one was easy.
There's a bunch of those like smaller indie games I wanted to get to, but I didn't, and it includes Snake Pass and the Ron Gilbert game. You just mentioned it. Thimbleweed
Park.
Thimbleweed Park. Like all that stuff is stuff I wanted to play, but I just didn't get around to.
Here's a good one from Killzone 310. Why won't anyone sleep with me in Mass Effect Andromeda?
You gotta work for that in that game. I've seen that.
I mean, look, there's a natural set of things that you can do to make it happen, but it's like I said, we were talking last week, I still hadn't sealed the deal or whatever. I eventually did, but you have to keep chatting them up. It's very obvious. Just always select the option that has the heart in it. And you have to do their loyalty missions. That's the most important thing. Like the redhead Suvi, that was who I wanted the whole time. And she tells you right out of the gate, like, no. Like, I don't mess around with crew members and blah. And I really thought... That's what she says,
Because I'm playing female, I'm playing Lady Rider. And my first option with a heart for her was like, oh, I think you're cute. And she's like, yeah, I think you're pretty cute. Like, she was like super into it. Yeah.
Wow. Well, for me, I had to work for it. I mean, work. Like, I didn't, like, till the end of the game, till I finally got her to come around. Like, and her loyalty missions, for me, opened up later as well. So, that's the routine, though. You have to select all the heart options when you talk with them, and then you have to do the loyalty missions. And you have to come back and just keep being I was going to say banging on them. You have to keep being persistent. And eventually it should happen. Some of the girls, it was easy. Like, there's the reporter girl. That girl wanted to jump in bed after I talked to her like the second time. I actually had to tell her no, that I didn't want to have anything to do with her to get her like away from me. So a lot of it just depends on which person you're trying to hook up with, but loyalty missions are the most important thing to make it happen.
That character hasn't done that to me because I guess she doesn't swing that way.
I guess. That's crazy.
Shelburne asked what my final verdict on Mass Effect Andromeda is, and I haven't finished it. I think I'm like 50% through the story, according to the percentage-y thing.
Have you got to the big plot twist yet?
No.
Oh, okay. You'll know it when you get it.
Like I'm getting there. I'm just not too motivated. And when Kingdom Hearts came out, I just sort of shifted to that. I haven't. I keep falling asleep playing Mass Effect. I hate to keep harping on the fact that it's just not doing it for me, but it's not doing it for me.
Let's see. Here's a good one. Danny Endurance. Do you think a game will ever come along that tops your current all-time favorite?
Oh, well, my current all-time favorite is Shadow of the Colossus. That's a hard one to beat.
Yeah.
My previous favorite was Panzer Dragoon Saga. So about every 8 to 10 years was kind of the rule before. And so Shadow of the Colossus was 2004, so we're 13 years in on that one. I don't know. I mean, I was kind of hoping The Last Guardian would, and boy, it didn't. And I don't know. Because my favorite game tends to be just, not that I'm saying it's the best game I've ever played, but it's just the game that I enjoyed and spoke to me the most. And it's just like that aesthetic kind of, you don't get that kind of thing very often. Again, I'm going to bring up Mobius again. It's like, Panzer Dragoon Saga had that too. It's like that sort of fantastical element that it's that little, you can't quite say what it is, but that's what speaks to me and captures my imagination in those games. And people don't really make games like that much. So I guess I'm just sort of waiting for another Shadow of the Colossus. Maybe what was that Kickstarter game with the Prey of the Gods or something like that? Like that looks like it could be up my alley in that regard.
I think it was picked up by a publisher as well.
Was it?
Yeah.
Like I got my eye on that one, but I don't know. Like I certainly didn't expect Shadow of the Colossus to be my favorite game ever either.
Yeah,
they come out of nowhere.
They do.
So it could be anywhere. Could be right around the corner.
I honestly don't even have a favorite game of all time, because it's like games are released in a moment in time, and it's like, okay, well, I really enjoyed that game then, but then you go back and play them later, and you're like, well, I think maybe Shenmue might be a game for you, where moment in time, amazing. Now trying to play it years later.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting because we did some of my online friends years ago. I want to say around 2002-ish. We all decided to do a top 100 list of all time. Yeah, and we all did. We did a ranked 200 list, and my top 10 is probably pretty. I'd say half of it is still in the top 10. Yeah. But a lot of I think I put Shenmue 2 at number 6 or something. Right. It probably wouldn't make the top 25 now. Yeah. Just because, and that's one of the things about Shadow of the Colossus is if I go back to Shadow of the Colossus, either the original or the HD remaster, I still feel that way when I play. I still get same with Panzer Dragoon Saga, although I had to use, I had to put the discs in for use an emulator now because my Saturn melted basically. The Saturns haven't lasted very well.
Yeah,
they have battery problems. Yeah. But I played that. I still played through it a couple of years ago, and I still loved it. It's ugly and it's really hard to look at now. But and they really should do a remaster. But I know they lost the source code. But like I keep the longevity. Like I don't give something that title lightly or early. You know, like I didn't say that about Shadow of the Colossus immediately, but I think like 3 or 4. I think it was like 2 or 3 years later when I had to play it for Cheat, when we brought Cheat back. One of the episodes was going to be all about getting time trial times on Shadow of the Colossus, and I had to replay through it again with all the Shadow, and I still loved every second of it. And I hate time trials. I don't like timed things in games, but I enjoyed doing it in this game just because I loved everything about how it played, even the annoying things. So it has to be a game like that, and it'll probably be a couple years before I realize it's my new favorite game.
Yeah.
It's a hard question.
It is a hard question, and I think, really, if you look at things even-handedly, most of the best games ever made have been made in the last, 2 years. I mean, if you really look at it unbiased, it's like they have the best graphics, they have the best gameplay, they have the most features, but there's different ways to look at it. You can say, what's the greatest game of all time? Or you can say, what game impacted you the most when you played it? And that's how I tend to look at, what is my all-time favorite games. I tend to look at, how did they hit me whenever they were released, not how they're hitting me now. And I just think, for me personally, you're never going to be able to topple the first time you experience certain things. I don't think you can topple the first time you ever played the first great polygonal 3D game, Super Mario 64. I just don't think I'll ever be able to replicate the feeling that I felt the first time I played that game. I don't think I'll ever be able to replicate the first time I played Wii Sports. I mean, we kind of banged on it earlier for being a nominee for the Hall of Fame, but the first time I played Wii Sports, I was like, holy crap, this actually feels like I'm kind of really doing this, and I've never really felt that in a game before. And you can go back through time, and there's all these kind of touchstone moments where you do things for the first time, and the technology kind of makes sense for the first time. I mean, just the first time putting on a VR helmet and just looking around, those are the moments that stick with me. Sometimes even more so than just games, that one moment. I don't know if I've told the story on this show before, but the first time my mom played Super Mario 64, and I put the controller in her hand, and she didn't know anything. And I grabbed her hands and put her hands on the controller and put her thumb on the stick. And she was afraid to push the stick. I don't know if she was afraid it was going to break or whatever, but he was tiptoeing. I'm like, push the stick harder. And then he starts walking and skipping. I'm like, push it all the way. And he starts running, and she just busts out into laughter. I mean, just laughter. And I don't know if we'll ever see moments like that again in video games. I just, maybe something happened. Maybe eventually the holodeck is real and hundreds of years. I don't know. But those landmark moments. And then, I always go back to Ocarina of Time because, we'd played the 3D games up until that point, but then Ocarina of Time was really the game that kind of figured it all out and said, this is how we're going to play games from this perspective in the foreseeable future. And as it turned out, more than the foreseeable future. So I think it's a hard question to answer, and I really have never had an all-time favorite game. So I guess it's kind of a cop-out answer.
I tend to separate the technical marvels from the game. Like Super Mario 64, I have the most stories like what you told the story about your mom. I can tell 4 or 5 stories like that about my friends or whatever. But I like Banjo-Kazooie better than Super Mario 64.
It's a better game.
So, and so
that's what I was saying. All the best games really have come out in the last couple years, save for a few examples, because everything has evolved. The best indie developer is probably better than the best indie developer from 15 years ago, because the tools are all there. It makes everything so easy. You're not doing everything by scratch or by hand anymore. The middleware is so good. It's comparing apples and oranges in a lot of ways, I think. Shardin 112, thank you, Civic Games, for this time slot. Will there be more in the future? And do you check stats to see which time has more viewers? I do not. I don't check any stats on our live streams because honestly they don't really matter to us as a business. We make nothing off streaming on Twitch. The only reason we do it is to try and get new subscribers, and I think that has never happened. Honestly, I think in the whole time Sifted has existed, I have not had, at least no one's ever told me, not once, that they discovered Sifted watching GameFace and then subscribed. I mean, after years of doing this, I think that people who only watch our stuff on Twitch just want the free ride. And they like the show, but they don't want to pay for it. So because there's really no business impact on our business from Twitch, I don't really look at those stats at all. I'm always appreciative that you guys are on, but it tends to be the same people every week. Like, it's so much so that, you know, I can typically spot somebody who's never been on our stream before, and I'll be like, oh, hey, welcome. Thanks for checking out the stream for the first time. So as far as stats are concerned, I really have no idea which one's doing better. I don't know. I still think I prefer Thursday nights. I just feel like Friday is kind of like a day late and $1 short. Thursday is the day when everyone's kind of podcasts go up. I feel like it's kind of the perfect medium between, okay, 2 days after all the stuff came out. But the show goes up on a Friday, so like our subscribers who are going out for the weekend can download it to their whatever before they take off for their weekends. Obviously, they can still do that if they have cell phone reception. But a lot of people like get geared up for the weekend on their Fridays, and now the shows, we try to get the shows up late Friday night, so at least they're there for Saturday morning. So we want to eventually get back to Thursday. Hopefully you guys are okay with that. I realize it's better, this time slot's better for people in Europe by a country mile. I totally get it. But I feel like the show itself is better on a Thursday. So, but until we have enough content to bump it up a day and have a good show, that's probably not going to happen. So, foreseeable future Fridays until we have an avalanche of content or information that will warrant bumping up a day and only having 6 days to gather and kind of get content together for an episode. So,
Fruit Eater asks, is Persona 5 fairly standalone, or do you have to have played the previous games? As far as I know, every Persona game is standalone.
Yeah, it's completely standalone. It's a brand new story that starts out. There's obviously elements of the Persona games that have carried over. Obviously, like the Personas.
But there is no character continuity, as far as I'm aware.
No, me either. I mean, not that I've picked up on so far.
I mean, there might be like cameos or something. Like, I think there's a couple characters in 3 that are referenced or seen briefly in 4 or something like that. So it might be something like that. But they're totally different stories.
Yeah.
There's no continuity.
And they almost do too good of a job of setting up the story. Like I said, I feel like I'm still in a tutorial and I've been playing for multiple hours. So, if you've never played a Persona, don't sweat it. You're not going to be jumping into the deep end of the pool and not knowing what's going on.
The Legacy asks, have you played Horizon yet, Shane?
No, I still haven't. I still haven't.
Horizon might, given some time, Horizon might crack that top 10 list.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah. I'm going to play it. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to play it, and we're going to do eval for it, and I'll probably do some live streaming, because I can play show whatever the hell I want now at this point. But I've not jumped on it yet. It's just been one after another, and it kind of got wedged in the middle there, unfortunately. Let's see. Can you give Sifted user Rowdy Wabbit a shout-out? He's posted a blog about a mobile game he's made, Sloth Climb. It's fun. Everyone should give it a go. Well, there it is. There's his shout-out. Score Fear. Now knowing a lot more about Zelda Breath of the Wild, what do you think the DLC dungeon is going to be? Good question.
Short.
Another deity or something more advanced?
I'm hoping more advanced, but I don't know what you would do for that.
I mean, there's no dungeons in the game, so how do you even have a frame of reference for what the DLC dungeons? Maybe they're actually going to give you a real frickin' dungeon.
Well, here's the thing.
How about that?
Well, here's the thing. The one thing I guarantee is there's going to be 12 more shrines.
Yeah.
Because you need 12 more shrines to have maxed out Link's stats.
Right.
Because you can pick heart container or stamina, and you're 3 upgrades short of maxing it out. You have to pick one. And so I think the DLC will add enough shrines to max Link out. And that's the only thing I can say for sure.
Maybe we really get a real dungeon. Imagine that.
That'd be nice. Well, I mean, there's people that speculate that, like, you'll play as Zelda, and it'll be a flashback to, like, whatever she had to do 100 years ago, and that'll be an actual dungeon that she goes through, or, like, which seems like a cop-out to some degree.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't know.
There's obviously plenty of empty land for them to just plop whatever the hell they want down there.
Yeah, they can do whatever. And then there was something where people were pointing out, there's a part of the map where, like, you can't get to it, but it's there and it's not named. It's conspicuously part of the map, but not part of the game. And, like, people think that that's the part that's going to fill in. And I don't remember where it is. But I saw somebody saying like, this part, all the other parts where the map ends, it like goes off the map. The map ends on the screen. But in this, there's like a little chunk that is clearly still on the map, but you can't get there yet. And so that's probably where they're going to add whatever that is.
Yeah. It'd be interesting just to see how they do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's, because, I'm trying not to get my hopes up too much on their wording, because, story-driven dungeon can mean anything.
Well, they also said that there were dungeons in the game, and there weren't. So I take everything they say with a grain of salt. Which is probably why they're asking us this question, because they do too. So.
I mean, I'd kind of maybe take another Divine Beast, just because those look cool.
Yeah.
I don't find them very satisfying as dungeons, but I think they look pretty neat.
Yeah. Well, I think some of them are ingenious. Playing those without any help, one of them almost broke my brain in half. I was just like, I can't even do this. I had to walk away and come back with a fresh look on it. And because there was one, it reminded me of the Water Temple in Ocarina of Time. There's that one puzzle in the Water Temple in Ocarina where you raise the water level, and there has been a block sitting on the ground, and when you raise the water level, the block raises up off the ground, and then there's a hole that you can jump down in. And I remember that stumped me and all my friends that were playing that game for literally days. We could not solve the Water Temple. And there's a very similar thing in one of the dungeons in Breath of the Wild, where there's this, once you turn it, there's a little hole that you have to fall down in, and I could not find that freaking hole. And it's like, when you're playing a game and you feel like you've tried everything, and you're just like, I've flipped this every direction, I've went to every part of it while I flipped it. It's like you go through permutations and combinations and go through the process of elimination. And I felt like I had done that, and I just found it accidentally. I had turned it while I was on it, and I slid and fell down, and I landed right next to it. I'm like, there's a hole! And I dropped down in, and I was like, hallelujah! Yeah.
Not a lot of that in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, unless you're talking about the stupid motion control shrines.
Oh,
you got to roll the ball. Let's see. We'll answer a couple more. Got Shane to say y'all.
Cheater Hater asked about someone who deals in heart containers in the world that they mentioned. There's a character that can reset your stats. You don't buy heart containers or stamina vessels from them, but you can, if you don't like the way you've tricked out your Link, you can get your points back and do it again for a fee.
Ollie John, would you consider doing GameFace on YouTube Gaming also? You mean live streaming on YouTube?
I don't know. I guess.
Unfortunately, our TriCaster, I don't believe, unless there's a firmware update we don't have yet, I don't believe it can stream on multiple platforms at once. I think it can only stream one. But actually, we have not updated the firmware on our TriCaster for a while. Maybe that's...
Partly out of fear.
Well, the last time we did that, it took us 4 days to get it to work right again. So, we can only stream on one service at once. But truth be told, he or she does make a really good point. Because we have 10,000 subscribers on our YouTube, 11,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel, and we have 1,100 on Twitch.
Yeah.
So it does actually kind of make sense that we should be streaming on YouTube instead, because there's going to be a bigger audience and a much higher likelihood of that audience then coming and subscribing to the site. And I believe, some people argue that YouTube streaming is better than Twitch's as well, as far as video quality and stuff like that. So it's certainly something that we'll look into. I would love to be able to stream on both at the same time. That would be the ideal situation. And there's Beam. We can stream on 3 at once, which I think just launched today on Xbox One. So, yeah, we probably should investigate that a little more. Sometimes you overthink things, and you should just go where the audience is. And our audience really is on YouTube and not on Twitch. So that's something to think about. Feel free to leave your opinions of that and your impressions of that idea in the comments on the show. And I will say, every time I ask people to leave comments about something on the show in the comments, they never do. Every time I'm like, leave feedback about this in the comments. Nobody ever leaves any feedback. So do it this time. Let's see. Find another one by any chance?
No. This is the Ian Esquire asked if you guys could ask a question for Patrick Factor, what would you ask? We can ask a question for Patrick Factor.
No.
I I don't know. I feel like Shane would just ask Pactor when the camera's off.
Yeah, I mean, when we go to shoot Pactor Factor, I don't just show up, shoot, and roll. Like, while I'm setting up, I talk to Pactor for, like, an hour. After we're done shooting, we sit around and we talk for, like, another hour. We chat the whole way while we're recording. So, honestly, I don't have a lot of questions for Pac. He has a lot for me because he doesn't play a lot of games. He doesn't have access to a lot of games. He doesn't have time to play the ones that he does get sent. So, a lot of times what he'll do is he'll sit down and he'll start picking my brain of stuff that I played to see if it's worth him giving it a shot. Or he'll ask me my opinion on some news topic that broke that week, because he looks at everything from like a financial perspective. So he asks me things from more of like a content perspective or a critical perspective on some things, or asks me, are people crazy about this? Are they right? Are they wrong? That type of thing. But as far as asking him questions, I mean, I'll tell you what, if people don't start sending in more questions for Pactor Factor, I am going to have to start asking him questions. I mean, I had to go in the YouTube comments to get questions for the last batch. Like that, he even was like, a YouTube question, and I was like, yep, that's where it's at. Like, because, he tweets, hey, send out Pactor Factor questions at like 11 p.m. Pacific.
Right.
And then you get like 2 replies, and it's like, dude, like do it at like noon when everybody's on Twitter, and we'll get more responses. So, yeah. And also, by the way, there is a message board thread on Sifted right now. We're taking requests on ways to alter or change Pactor Factor. Show's been on the site for over a year now, which is crazy to think about. He's up over 50 episodes at this point. And we've changed this show 3 times now, I think, since it launched. Mm-hmm. And we haven't touched Pactor Factor. And so I have noticed that the views are starting to fall a little bit for Pactor Factor. You guys aren't watching it as much. Although on YouTube, it's actually starting to finally do better.
You should probably start insulting more Nintendo executives.
I guess, yeah. I don't know.
That's how you get the clicks.
It is sad that that's the way it is. People don't want real information. They just want to argue with each other. But the views are starting to go down a little bit on site. So we're looking at ways to maybe change the show, morph the show a little bit. There is a message board thread that is stickied in the forums, and you guys can go there and share your opinion on that stuff. So, did you find one more question while I was babbling on by any chance?
W. Matthew asks, given the StarCraft remaster, what do you think the odds are on a Diablo 2 remaster?
It's going to happen eventually.
You think?
I think everything eventually is. That's what I've learned over the last half decade. Everything eventually is going to be remastered.
Games are a flat circle.
The games that are coming out now are eventually going to get 4K remasters and then 8K remasters. Where does it end, Matt?
Holographic remasters?
I guess. Yeah, it may be. Like, that might be it. Like the holodeck remaster. I don't know. It may go on into infinity, so yes. I think if you ask me any game that scores over, and even an 8 probably, or an 8.5.
There's a lot of games that I'd be willing to play from the perspective of that robot game in PlayStation VR.
Yeah.
Like
Riggs?
Yeah. No, the little robot platformer. You remember that?
Yeah.
Where it kind of just stuck you in the game.
Yeah, from the playroom.
I'd play like Mass Effect remastered for that.
Yeah.
Just like floating over Shepard and kind of looking around in the world.
Like
I'd play remastered versions of games. Like once VR headsets are like 4K capable in the like that'd be kind of a cool way to remaster something.
Yep. So they're saying the YouTube chat sucks.
Is that because the chat sucks?
It looks exactly the same to me.
Physically, or because the people in YouTube chat
are you saying that it's the people? You have to deal with all the people on YouTube? And I would totally get that. I could totally understand. As somebody who has to moderate YouTube comments, I totally get it. I definitely do. And I hear you. It's like we're in this little cocoon here on Twitch, but the little cocoon doesn't have any money in it, unfortunately. So
just got butterflies. Yeah. Butterflies don't pay the bills.
Which are beautiful, but they don't pay the bills. So we may have to rejigger our the way things work.
On Wolffox 10JC asks if I'm going to watch This in the Shell, which I assume is Ghost in the Shell with autocorrect applied. Yeah. I saw Ghost in the Shell earlier this week in a screening. Actually, that reminds me. Yeah, I saw Ghost in the Shell earlier this week in a screening. Didn't hate it, which I guess means it's a success because that exceeded my expectations that I didn't hate it. But while I was at the theater for that screening, I recorded with Chris Gore and the Film Threat guys a podcast called that might be going up soon. So keep an eye out, and some people have asked if we were going to start some kind of thing for me to talk about movies in, because I sidetrack the show with movie talk fairly often. And something of that nature is happening. We've done the first episode. It's coming. Like, I'll give you more information as it happens.
Yeah, we'll promote the hell out of it here.
You can see what I think about Ghost in the Shell in detail in that podcast. But I will just say right now, you're probably safe waiting for Redbox.
Really?
I mean, it wasn't visually as impressive as I thought it would be.
Dude, the promos for that, they're nothing.
Yeah.
They're her in a bodysuit. Basically like boobs.
Yeah.
Like they don't tell you what it's about. They don't tell you that it's based on like something. They tell you nothing.
Yeah,
They're like, "Hey, here's Scarlett Johansson in she looking real hot, I might add, in a bodysuit jumping through glass." And you know what? That's probably plenty for it to get a good opening weekend.
No, I don't think it's going to.
Really?
I think it'll be lucky to crawl across 30 million.
That's not a bad opening weekend. For,
it is when your movie cost 180 million.
It costs that much?
That's what the word is.
Whoa! That was a huge mistake.
Also has might be the most production company logos I've ever seen in front of a film ever.
Yeah.
Like, it was a joint production with like 6 different companies.
Well, you deal with a property like that.
Probably that is like there's a bunch of Asian production companies involved. It's weirdly bland and disconnected, and which is odd considering it's subject matter. Also, like, it's not really covering the same themes and subject matter of the original film.
Right.
It's basically a remake of RoboCop.
Yeah.
Like,
That's what it seems like.
Like, I don't. It's, if you like the original movie, like, it's they do recreate several scenes from the movie almost shot for shot, but like, it doesn't really seem to fit because it's about something different. And it's a very different approach to the material, and it just left me completely kind of disconnected. I walked out of it going like, and I feel like is not a good enough reason to spend $15 at the movies.
Hashtag Scarlett Johansson in a bodysuit.
That really is what they're selling it on. I mean, that's all it is.
That's what you know how every TV commercial or every movie has a hashtag,
and like
that should have been the hashtag. For
and look,
if
you really desperately want to see Scarlett Johansson with like most of her clothes off, go watch Under the Skin.
Yeah, I mean, you get the whole shebang there.
Because she's an android in this, and she doesn't have any nipples. So
is that true?
Yeah.
Why can't robots have nipples?
In the comics, they do.
All right.
But in this one, like, there's a lot of differences in this that I think undermine the thematic underpinnings of how Ghost in the Shell is supposed to work, and instead trade it for more of a corporate people stole my memories RoboCop thing. So I feel like RoboCop covered that pretty well already in 1987, which was when did that movie came out? In 95, 96. So it was already, that idea was already outdated when the original movie came out 20 years ago.
You're right, yeah.
And now, like, and the other weird thing is, like, they didn't really update the world to take into account this, because Ghost in the Shell, when it came out in 95, 96, that world was so far-flung, crazy future stuff. And a lot of that stuff has started to kind of halfway get here.
I know. It's not science fiction anymore.
And like, especially because like, I like some people have pointed out like cyberpunk is happening in the real world, but we're getting all the boring parts first, like corporate control of things, information overload, like social isolation. Like no one has a cyborg arm that can lift a truck yet, but we have all the corporate ownership already.
Parts,
the bad parts of cyberpunk are happening first, and that sucks.
Yep.
But like they didn't really do anything with the world in this movie that updates it for the 20 years that have passed since the original one. And in fact, I find it a little more blah. It's just like, okay, it's like, yeah, everything's a hologram ad. What else you got? The answer is they got nothing.
They got Scarlett Johansson.
They got Scarlett Johansson in a bodysuit.
And sometimes that's enough. And that's enough for us for GameFace episode 81 right here on Sifted Games. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, no matter where you may be or what time it may be. And look, if we're going to make a move to YouTube, we'll message that out way ahead of time. It's not like you're going to show up for the show and we're not going to be here on Twitch. We would make a big announcement. We'd do one last episode on Twitch before we were to move over there. So don't freak out. We're not going to just disappear and you won't be able to find us. So everyone have an...
That's not a good way to run a show.
That's really not a good way to run a business, is to just disappear. So
how can we hide our broadcast from the most people?
Everyone have a great weekend. Hope you guys are all playing some great games. Obviously, there's plenty of them out there. GameFace is up and out.